Okay, man, are you ready to go?
I'm ready to go. Now, come on, now crank this motherfucker up.
Break it down like this.
Hello, Internet. Gino, that Pinguino Greco here again with another episode of Deep Listens. And today's a very special episode because I finally bit the bullet and decided to do a Final Fantasy trading card game set review podcast. For those who have listened to the Listen to the Magic podcast that I've been doing with MTG expert Kyle, I decided, we're still going to do those, but I honestly at this point play the FFTCG more than I play Magic the Gathering. And I want to discuss this game a little bit more. So this will be a bonus podcast. It'll be available. It won't displace any other podcast. So you'll have the normal off weeks and stuff like that. But I thought since Opus XI, the newest Final Fantasy trading card game is set to drop this Friday, well, this might go out after that happens, but Friday the 27th of March, 2020. Now would be a good time to look at some of those cards, explain some of the mechanics that are in the set, and call some shots on what the good cards are going to be, what sorts of decks people should look out for, and maybe turn some more people onto the game. And so to do that, I needed a person who's an expert, some sort of investigator who just excels at finding the great cards. And I thought, who better to do that than the person who hosts the RVA Returners Locals, the local online Octagon tournament I play in every week. You can find me there. Who other than John Schreiner?
Hello, how's it going?
Good. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here.
So, for people who don't know John, he is a member of the RVA Returners, a Final Fantasy trading card game team that is based out of Richmond, Virginia, and has sent people to nationals routinely. No one from the Returners has made Worlds yet, right?
Mr. Byron Bilicki did.
Oh, my bad.
Lord
yeah.
Byron.
Lord Byron joined.
Yes. He won the Crystal Cup in Tampa last year, one of the regional tournaments for Final Fantasy that gets you the World Invite for winning.
Right, and you can also find the Returners doing a lot of community building, they've got their own podcast, the RVA Returners podcast, which I listen to regularly, and also just a lot of casting of events and stuff like that. So, John, you're a relatively new member of the team, if I remember correctly.
Yes, one of the newest, I believe. Me and the other guys from New Jersey, we're actually kind of implants from up here because there aren't too many other super competitive players in our area that we're looking to assemble together. So we got to know these guys from, traveling around from a couple events. It's just a great bunch of guys down there in Virginia. We clicked right away, so they were nice enough to basically adopt the Jersey boys. So, yeah, I joined about, I want to say maybe almost a year ago now.
Yep, thereabout that I remember you starting on the podcast at least.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so what is your history with Final Fantasy, and then what's your history with the card game?
So, Final Fantasy, I've been playing, about as long as I can remember. My earliest memories of anything are me playing on, NES or Super Nintendo, and I had Final Fantasy 3, /6, basically, on Super Nintendo, and it was and still is to this day my absolute favorite game. And so I'm very happy about this set, but that's for a little bit later. And for the trading card game, like a lot of people, it kind of, snuck out. I didn't know that it was a thing when Opus 1 and 2 first released. And the funny thing is I'm playing Pokemon competitively at this point, right? Traveling all around, playing a trading card game. And you kind of, how it is playing a card game. You hear about all the other ones going on, and you kind of are just, you're in the generic loop.
Yeah.
And I hadn't heard anything about it. So the first time I hear about it is right before New York Comic Con, and this is 2017, and it sounds like a long time ago, but really it's only been
I'm dying.
3 years.
No, it is.
Yeah, right. So yeah, I think that I was playing with starter decks that I imported from Europe because it was so difficult to buy cards. And I was really just obsessed with the IP, and I just wanted to play a Final Fantasy card game, whether or not it was good, and figured I'd be sticking to Pokemon. What I didn't expect was it to be, honestly, the best card game I've ever played, personally, in years and years and years of playing card games. It is a really well-designed, it is a really good card game, and a lot of the things I like the most about trading card games, like deck building, are strengths of this game, for sure. So I wound up getting these starter decks, and I needed more. I went to New York Comic Con, and they had a little booth where they were doing a draft tournament, and I basically abandoned every plan I had for that day, my single day that I had a badge for at Comic Con that year, and I said, this is what I'm going to do. And I just sat down, played in an Opus XI draft. I was super excited to get cards in my hand for the first time that weren't from a starter deck. I won the draft, and they gave me a Play Arts figure, and that was it. After that, I was like, that's it. I'm in. I can't not play this game seriously. And, I top 16 the first regional at the Boston Crystal Cup, and that kind of got me, like, I was meeting a lot of the players from the different areas, and that's when I first befriended some of the Meta Potion guys and the Returners guys, and then, just from there qualified for both of the nationals that they've had so far that they had invites to, and trying to, do it again this year, maybe get on some kind of worlds team, been commentating and stuff for the game, just getting more and more involved because I just love it so much, and I just want to, help it grow and spread the love.
Yeah, and we've actually been like two ships in the night on that one because I was at PAX East when that Boston Crystal Cup was happening, and I was trying to get games at the Square Enix booth because at PAX East they usually have, some coverage of card games. Like you can get Magic events whenever you want. There'll be random card games that also have support depending on what show it is and where the games are in kind of their hype cycle. But you could buy the FFTCG cards, but you couldn't play anyone. Like, they teach you a demo game, but nothing else. And I had, at that point, put together a couple of decks. Like, they weren't serious. They weren't super legit, necessarily. But I didn't know that yet, because I hadn't played against anyone who was that skilled.
Right.
So I was just trying to get people into it, trying to find ways to play. And I asked, like, so are there any games going on at PAX East? And they're like, no, but there's one in, like, a hotel nearby. I'm like, I'm not. Yeah. I've got a badge to this event. I'm not leaving in the middle of the event to go to another event. And little did I know that it was the first Crystal Cup.
Yeah, I mean, it was crazy. I mean, even Square Enix, like, I never saw another Crystal Cup like this one, man. I have been to so many, like, regionals and things like that for other games, and we went in, and they had all of the, like, these actual nice glasses out for water. Like, not paper cups, not whatever. They had these nice, like the crystal had been brought out. Like, they had, like, the whole ballroom set up for all this water. They had all these pads perfectly lined up with pens next to them. And it was like, oh, please take a pad and a pen. Please, you can have some water. You'll be drinking out of, like, nice glasses. They had a playmat down, the black Final Fantasy playmat. Yep. Like, just the simple one. They had one of those down at every single table spot on all the tables set up in the room. And it was like, oh, you didn't even have to bring your playmat. Like, don't worry, we've got everything here for you. And I was like, this is the craziest Crystal Cup or like regional type thing I've ever been to. I've never ever seen an event where they just have, like, they didn't even advertise it as a prize. They just have playmats for all the players, like, on the table.
That's awesome.
And it was really cool. And it's kind of a shame that that pomp and circumstance has kind of gone away over time. But yeah, for me, it was like just another standout thing where I was like, wow, okay, this is different. Something they care a little bit more about, like, the quality of things. Like, I mean, which is apparent as soon as you pick up a card, right?
Yeah, the card stock it's impressive, honestly. After playing Magic for a long time, like, Magic is good, but outside of the foiling just being like, it's really nice to look at, but it bends the cards very quickly in this game. But it was serious. I didn't know how serious it would be. I actually got roped into this game because I have an ongoing podcast feature that listeners will be familiar with, the Ranking of Fantasies, where I'm trying to play every Final Fantasy game and put them into a rank. And one of the listeners said, hey, there's this trading card game. That counts, right? And I'm like, I guess it does. And then I got into it.
That listener is a hero. Thank you, whoever that listener was, mystery listener.
Yes. That was great. Like, I got into it from there, and then for a while I was like working at a card shop part-time, and we could not get this game because their distribution was wild.
Yeah, I think it was a GTS exclusive for the first year. Yeah.
It was a hot exclusive. We couldn't order it if we wanted to, and we did. And then by the time it was available to be ordered, the store was like, we're not gambling on this ridiculous card game that no one seems to be asking for except for you. I'm like, fair.
That we couldn't even order for a year. Yeah, that is the same story that almost everybody got, unfortunately.
Yep. So now you're running a weekly online local.
That's right.
The RVA Returners online locals. And you're also putting together a online tournament because now everyone's sick. We can't go to events anymore.
I mean, we just had maybe the most creative set as far as what it has unlocked in terms of deck building in a very long time. And it is a shame that we aren't going to get to slam these cards again. This is supposed to be the big Crystal Cup competitive seasons, this is the heart of the Road to Worlds kind of thing. And we didn't even get to have a single Crystal Cup before we've got the first 3 canceled, and all the open events are canceled. The fanfare was a shadow of itself, and basically all the events that they had for all the way through I think August, everything's canceled. So we're trying to keep the hype alive and also make sure all the new players who are coming into the game, because we all know the remake is coming out, and there's been a lot of hype about this new set because it is very Final Fantasy VII remake focused. There's a Final Fantasy VII 2-player starter deck with all remake art, and we wanted there to be something to watch, something to play in, something to do, especially since we're all stuck at home. And because I had created this online locals, we had created the perfect formula, and we had already laid basically all the groundwork. We just needed to scale it up. And thankfully, everybody's at home with nothing to do. Yep. So we have a huge team of people who are ready to help scale it up. And so we're going to be hosting it's a Crystal Cup or a regional size tournament for Final Fantasy. So it's going to be in the realm of about 100 players. All of the money that we're collecting as far as entry fees and anything and donations and stuff is all going as prizing out to the players. It's going to be, all in one weekend. We're going to have a multi-deck day 1 where they can play whatever they want. Day 2 is going to be a 2-deck format where they play best of 3 and they have to win once with each deck. So we're really encouraging diversity. And so we're going to see a lot of different new ideas at the beginning of this new set. So it's going to be cool. It's going to be a great tournament, hopefully, for people who both love the game to see something exciting, and for people who maybe aren't familiar with the game yet. It's going to be such a great showcase of all of these different possibilities, all these different types of decks you could play. So we're hoping to get a lot of people's attention since it's so easy to jump in online digitally. And I think, Gina, we already saw last week the numbers doubled for both viewers and for people participating in our online locals, just because, this is people's only option really right now. And we're so excited to play with these cards. So, we have both the weekly tournament and this big tournament, and you can sign up for both of those through our Discord. I imagine there'll be a way that we can get this link to people.
Totally.
You're absolutely welcome to join our Discord, and it has all the setup information you need to get started with these online programs there. And we're going to be hosting this big tournament on the April 4th, 5th weekend, I believe it is.
Yep.
So please, if you guys want to check it out, you can watch us. We'll be streaming it live on Twitch with all kinds of commentators from, honestly, around the world, and it's going to be really fun.
Yep, it's the World of Ruin TCG Community Cup. You can sign up for it on cardsofevileast.com, and there's a link on the front page of the site. It's only $10. There's currently 50 tickets left, so if you have any inclination in this card game, this is going to be a cheap way to play against some of the best players in the world, get a good experience, have a good time. I definitely know that from participating in the locals and from playing in these tournaments, I've gotten worlds better.
Almost literally like a trademark world's better, because you're now beating people who are worlds good.
Yeah,
So
it's pretty incredible. Like last year, I started by just having a kind of cheesy FF9 deck because, as listeners know, 9's my favorite game. I put that deck together. I was just cheesing people out with Hasty Zidane, and then just cobbling together a win from there. And
yes,
then
we had a lot of conversations about this Zidane.
he's good.
Yes, he can be.
He can be. People need to. You need to respect him.
He ebbs and flows. Yeah.
You need to respect him always. He's always a
Yes.
threat. But then just going from there to eventually running into you at a regional qualifier.
Yeah, that was great, man. One of my favorite things is running into people from the online locals in person who are like doing really well, either on the locals or in person or both, and it just makes me super happy. Like you beat me, and that was great. You beat me with a Final Fantasy IX Fire Water deck that I'd seen you play a billion times on my tournament online.
Yeah, and
that
I
made me
beat
super
you
happy
because I knew you were playing a Water Earth Princes and Carbuncle deck, and I knew from playing against someone else who was using the same deck what tech cards I needed to see.
Yeah, it's
because I
funny
recognized it from like 2 backups.
Yeah, you are able to like apply that information right away, and that's what we really wanted to do. When I set this whole thing up, I wanted it to be like really, really deliberate, relevant practice.
And it totally is.
Yeah, it is 100%. So I'm really glad that people are getting, you're signing up, you're doing it, you're committing to it, and the results are just evident, like immediately obvious and evident, and it's really cool.
Yeah, so I'm not especially good at card. Well, I have a lot of experience, but I don't think I'm like an exceptionally great player. So, folks, if you are scared, if you're intimidated, don't be. Like, people are super friendly. You will get much better. And this game is actually, it's what pushed me off of Magic after 15 years of playing that game.
Yeah,
So,
we actually get a lot of Magic players because it's very similar mechanics-wise, but it fixes a lot of people's gripes when you've been getting kind of screwed by the same mechanics, and I use that word on purpose.
Yes.
For, like a decade, you get tired of it. So it's really interesting when a game has kind of solved some of those mechanical issues just in design.
I would say that the principal difference between Magic and FFTCG is 1 in 10 Magic games are non-games, regardless of what you were doing, depending on the format. In standard,
like completely out of the player's control. There's no decision tree that
you can't even play. You're not playing. You
Right.
don't get to take game actions. Literally, you're just sitting there losing without taking game actions, and that just sucks. And having a game where I have never had that happen in the FFTCG ever, not once. I've been able to always at least affect the board, do something. I might still get blown out. Like, you can still lose really badly. But it's not like you were sitting there just staring at your hand, discarding cards every turn because you can't cast anything.
you can still go for
the
the old turn 1 Yuri Luso Chelinka. Were you watching when I did that last weekend? I did one of those, like, oh no, I guess I started with, only this backup that has an enter ability. I guess I'll discard my entire hand to try and go for broke, because you just can.
Yeah.
Like, if you wanted to cast the 10 mana big dude, you could ditch your entire hand to do it and just say deal with it. And it's awesome because you can do everything in between that and setting up in the slowest super control kind of way.
Yeah, and those are decision trees. Like, every single hand that you have is a decision tree. So I would say, like, the FFTCG tends to have a higher floor than Magic does because everything is generally creature combat based. You're not you can always make choices every turn most of the time. You're interacting back and forth, and tempo matters a whole lot. But the ceiling of like craziness is much lower. Like, you can't go infinite. There's no way to go infinite. You can't go infinite in any direction. Everything's between the lines. And so because of that, every card in your hand matters. The cards you're playing really matter. What cards you're going to keep, what cards you're going to discard, those choices are really important. And it's nice to have a game where all 50 cards in your deck are relevant almost the entire game in a way that in Magic you might not even see, 40 cards in your deck if you're doing it right.
Yeah, sequencing in this game is harder than any game I've ever played, specifically because every single card is potentially resources to play another card. Like in Magic, that tells you what cards you will be using to pay for cards and what cards you can use to play, right?
Yep.
And it's just like the fact that there's every single card is a choice every time. It's really it's intimidating a little bit at first, and it's really easy to play the game poorly. And trust me, I did it a lot for a long time.
Yeah, it's an adjustment.
That's why we're happy to help teach you get better.
It's an adjustment to realize that every card in your deck is a split card.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
So yeah,
but it's what we like about it. That's why we talk about the things that drew us to the game. There's
exactly.
a reason that, like you said, it convinced you to step away from something you've been playing for so long. Same for me. I mean, a decade deep into this other game, and all of a sudden I go to the national championships and I can't stomach playing a game of it anymore, and I just want to go to play Final Fantasy.
Yeah. So without further ado, let's get to Opus 11. So
yes, such an exciting set.
This is the newest set. It has since in Magic we usually do a limited breakdown and then we'll go to some cards in the different formats. So I think for this, because limited it exists in FFTCG, but they don't have archetypes the way that Magic tends to design. Like much of Magic design at common and uncommon is strictly for limited purposes. I don't think that there are filler cards in FFTCG the way that Magic has. Almost every card, even if it's not strong enough to see widespread play, because of that split card nature of all the cards, I think almost every card is at least play. Like maybe 50% of the cards that have ever been printed in this game are playable in a competitive deck. I feel like
there's also
right
just like the amount of mechanics that can synergize cards between each other. So like there's the element, right? Then there's the category, the job, the card name, because of the way the unique character thing works. So for like S abilities and for card name synergies. So it's like the card name, the job, the title, and the element, and then the card type. So
and the bursts.
Forward, like forward, backup, burst. Monster. Yeah, so there's like cards can search for each other across like all 5 of these things, and it's pretty crazy. Yeah, and it leads to a lot of like really interesting cross synergies. But like you said, it also means that because of all of those things, like it's pretty hard for a card to just have like 5 irrelevant, markers. So there aren't any like just filler cards really.
Yeah. So in limited, there are a few mechanics in the set, but I think that they're the same mechanics that you'll see in constructed. So I don't think we need to talk about them specifically in limited. And limited games in FFTCG are governed so much by which legendaries and heroics you get access to, because the power level is just so much higher that I don't think we need to go over it in any sort of specific way. But I think that the main mechanical focuses in this set are tribal synergies. So things like samurai, ninjas,
monks,
dragoons, and I think those.
I don't know if you want to count a category as its own kind of thing, but like, or if that's not a tribe, but it almost is. They almost are like tribal, right? Yeah, there are a lot of like 6 synergies and tactics advance things.
6 tactics advance and 7, I think, have the most support. But the tribal synergies are cool because they are cross-game, but just based on the jobs. So we got a new Cyan, the samurai from Final Fantasy VI, and he lets you search for samurais, and then he makes your samurais deal damage whenever they attack, which is super cool.
He is a crazy card, actually.
Yeah.
I had a moment where I actually posted this to the group chat that I have with my teammates, and I said, wait, guys, can we stop for a second and look at this again? And I said, I don't think people really realize how crazy his second ability is, because this guy cleaves. It's not just him. He kind of creates this like anthem for every guy you have.
Yep.
Yeah, he gives everybody text where when they attack, they cleave the board for all of these cards you're going to play anyway, forwards and backups.
Yeah, he's a 3 CP fire forward, 6,000 power. EX burst. When he enters the field, you can search for one job samurai or card name samurai other than Cyan and add it to your hand. And then when a job samurai or a card name samurai you control attacks, deal 1,000 damage for each samurai or job samurai or card name samurai you control to all the forwards opponent controls. So this deck basically says if you have just put all the things with samurai in it in the same deck, and then every time you attack with any of them, you're going to wipe your opponent's board very quickly.
Yeah, and because of the party attack mechanic in Final Fantasy, you basically can threaten, like, okay, here comes the board wipe.
Every time you
combat.
attack.
Yeah. And it's also in the color, fire has access to haste more than almost any other element. Besides, like, lightning sometimes has it easier, but in this set specifically, like, fire is just more consistently has access to haste. And yeah, this guy just comes in and he does the thing. He is super well costed considering he can search for a backup that's like a multi-playable backup, and then also a backup that tutors out another important forward.
Yep.
Everything about this card, all of those markers we were just talking about, his element, his job, his name, the fact that he's a burst, and his category, the fact that he's from Final Fantasy VI, are all relevant.
Every single thing. He's overstated for being a searcher.
Mm-hmm.
He's got a relevant ability, and just a solid card all around. And that's kind of what we see across all of those synergies.
Mm-hmm.
Like we have Shadow, who's kind of your big I think he's probably your FF6 synergy, or biggest synergy. Him and Cesar.
Well, the backup, I think, is the biggest.
And
we're going to talk about that. That is hands down. But yeah. Shadow is cool. He's kind of synergy for a lot more than just FF6, actually. That's one of the things I like the most about him, is how universal his first ability is. So we can read the card real quick.
Yep. He is a 5 CP forward, 7,000 power. When he enters the field, reveal the top 5 cards of your deck, add 1 backup among them to your hand, and return the other cards to the bottom of your deck in any order. Then you may play 1 backup of cost 2 or less from your hand onto the field, and he has an S ability, Shadow Fang. So just discard another card named Shadow, and fire, choose 1 forward, deal it 10,000 damage. You can only use this ability if you've received a point of damage this turn. So he's just a lot of value. Like,
yeah, I mean, the coolest thing about him is that you don't have to play the backup that you take off of his ability.
Yep.
Right. So you can just play this with, Interceptor is the obvious synergy. We'll talk about him in a second, but you can just play this with any 2-cost backup in your hand and know that, like, oh, okay, I'll just get the card and I'll have, like, a choice. But I kind of have, like, a safety, like, I'll always get this card advantage off of playing this extra free character. Getting the card back in hand and playing the free character makes him, even though he seems a little bit understated as a 5-cost 7K, to me, honestly, he's overstated.
Yeah, he's not actually 5. He's closer to 1 CP, because he's drawing you a card and playing a card for free. So he's generating 2 CP. Drawing a card is kind of equivalent to 2 CP, and then playing the card for 2 CP. So he's really cheap when you calculate it all.
Yeah, and the fact that he just, like, benefits from synergies with the category, again, really helped this card.
Yeah. So that's kind of those are kind of the main synergies, those kind of tribal synergies. Another thing that this set has added a lot of is what I call the danger zone mechanic. Things that care about when your opponent's at 5 damage or when you're at 4 or 5 damage. And this is not the same thing as the damage mechanic, which they added last set, where it cares about how much damage you've taken. They added an entire cycle of summons that all have this. One of the best examples is in Fire, Ifrit. It's 1 CP Ifrit, EX Burst. It's a summon. Choose 1 forward, deal it 5,000 damage. If your opponent has received 5 points of damage or more, deal it 8,000 damage instead. So it's a good, efficient card if you play it early and if your opponent is under no duress. But if your opponent is under duress, it's wildly undercosted.
Yeah, I mean, these make me think of, like, an MMO's, like, execution abilities, where it's like, oh, the enemy is at 25% health and you just hit the button and it's dead. Like, this is your reward for pushing your opponent to their back against the wall. And while that's really cool for Fire, because you're always trying to push them in that kind of way, every single element got a summon that gets better as you aggressively put your opponent to 5 damage. And I think that's really, really cool. And like you said, they're all pretty good as they are at 1 cost, especially because they're an EX burst. But the fact that they have that kicker, it basically just puts them way over the 8,000 damage for 1 cost is insane.
They're literally as cheap as they could possibly be, almost, unless they're going to make 0 cost cards.
Yeah.
and they do more in some cases than cards that cost 2 or 3, depending on
Yeah,
which
I mean,
card.
to get 8,000 damage and fire, you need to be casting a 4-cost card that usually doesn't have an EX.
Yep. So. I think that those mechanics, there's a Sephiroth in this set that I'm sure we'll talk about that has a similar mechanic, and all these summons. We also got monster counters, which are new. They are monsters that, when they come in, they will have a kind of sacrifice this monster, and it will do a small effect. And then if you play characters that are the same element as that monster, the monster accrues counters, and once it has 3 counters, it gains access to a second ability that's kind of a bigger effect.
Mm-hmm.
So an example of this, we kept using fire examples. Here's one from FF9, Dandrine. It's 1 ice for a demon FF9 monster. When an ice character other than Dandrine enters your field, place 1 monster counter on Dandrine, put Dandrine into the break zone, choose 1 forward, dull it, but then put Dandrine into the break zone, choose up to 2 forwards, dull them, and freeze them. You can only use this ability if 3 or more monster counters are placed on Dandrine. So these things tend to be reasonably costed for 1, but if you can play them early and then develop behind them, they become gigantic blowouts at the end.
And the cool thing is that they just sit there on the board, like, waiting to be used. You know, you can invest in them early, and you don't have to pay for the effect later.
Yeah, they are just threatening to be used at any time.
Mm-hmm.
So I think those are kind of the main mechanics, and then there are a bunch of little pocket synergies. Like we've got the horrible bros from FF7, the Sephiroth clones or whatever.
I think that there's a couple other things that are like set specific that are worth mentioning. There's a cycle of backups that specifically are like we saw the lock in the, like, I think it was not last set but 2 sets ago, that just goes until he hits a certain kind of card. And I know that these kinds of cards, I know you love these kinds of cards because these are the cards that let you put the silver bullets in and just hit them every time. So an example of, and I'm sorry, Gino, I'm going to use a fire example because I have it up, but it's Lilty. It's the 3-cost standard unit backup, and I think they're all 3-cost standard unit backups. Most of them are FFCC, but I think there's 1 or 2 outliers.
Yep.
And when they enter the field, so Lilty, for example, turns over 1 card at a time from the top of your deck until an ice or wind card is revealed, and he's a fire card. And then you just add it to your hand. And they're multi-playable, so they're always going to get you a card unless you've built your deck horribly wrong.
Yeah, unless you goofed.
Yeah, these 3-cost cards are always going to get you a card, a 3-cost backup. That's pretty cool. And they actually are more specific and able to do things like most tutors can't, with the caveat being it has to be kind of like a single or 1 or 2 copies of an off-element card. It's really cool for things like the S ability mechanic. You can basically guarantee yourself an S ability if a character has multiple elements.
Yeah, you can do stuff like that. You can put in silver bullets in your like earth or wind decks because they tend to have access to multicolor backups.
You can
backups
find
to generate anything.
Braska's Final Aeon in your summoner deck.
I might be doing that.
Yeah,
a whole lot.
Yeah.
So yeah, Lilty. I think every single one of these is playable, and it's nice that every single one of them kind of synergizes with the class Moogles that came out in the last 2 sets, the Type 0 Moogle backups. Like Lilty searches you ice and wind. So the fire Moogle generates ice CP, the ice Moogle generates wind CP. So it's kind of the circle there.
Yeah.
And each of them kind of obeys the same logic. The element it is will fetch the next step in the chain and then the step after that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there are 2 other cycles that are kind of relevant to the monster cycle, the 3CP monster cycle, that they're forwards during your turn at 7k power forwards, and then they always have 1 of whatever element it is, discard the card and remove a backup from the game, do an effect. That's generally
hand,
summon. Yeah, from your hand.
Mm-hmm.
So like Red Cap, it's Fire 1, 3CP, Final Fantasy Tactics Advanced, Job Goblin, which is relevant. During your turn, Red Cap becomes a forward with 7,000 power, and then it has 1 fire CP. Discard Red Cap, remove 1 backup from the game, choose 1 forward, deal it 7,000 damage. You can only use this ability if Red Cap is in your hand. So these are basically monsters that also function as summons, but they also allow you to clear backups from your backup line, which is powerful.
Yeah, and it's really cool that you can use the backup that you tap because it doesn't have a tap effect on the backup. So you can just pay one with a fire and then get rid of that same fire backup to use this ability. And
in some ways, these cards are better than their matching summons because they also can win the game. So I would probably play Red Cap over Brynhilder, the matching fire summon, in most cases now. Now, obviously, there's a bit of a card disadvantage or tempo disadvantage to blowing up a backup.
And also, Red Cap doesn't have the burst. And it's worth mentioning that these guys are the most vanilla forwards when they're forwards. You can't use the ability that they can do from hand when they're on the field. So they are literally just 3 cost 7Ks that have evasion during your opponent's turn. But
also
the hand
can't
trap
block.
thing is really, really cool. Yeah, exactly. They can't block. They basically get to, they just don't interact with anything on your opponent's turn.
Yeah, so they're a really cool design. Again, these are not common. These are cards that you're going to see all the time, and they're all very cool. And then there's also a cycle of common standard units that care about playing, if you played them with 2 or more different elements of CP. And all of them, they're cool for limited, but I don't think they're going to see much play because none of them are really pushed.
And then I think that there were, maybe 1 or 2 cards that have mechanics that do this as part of, S abilities or part of the fact that was, their special legend thing they did. But there are a lot of cards this set that damage yourself.
Yeah.
A lot of them. And so we're not just talking, I think in the past it's literally Fusoya and Cecil.
And
right?
there's the Bahamut's.
Yes, that's right, the Bahamut's. And the Bahamut's actually got better because of how good it is to put yourself to high damage, because of, in this set, these cards that do damage yourself, that's synergy in this set. You're wanting to damage yourself with some of the payoff cards for that in Opus 11, so.
Yeah, there's a lot of, they've fully supported suicide aggro now.
Yeah, it's definitely a thing.
Which is cool. So now let's go into some of the element breakdowns. So fire, we've been there the whole time. So we're going to go over what card we think is just the Stone Cold Nuts, the best card in the element, what an underrated card might be, and what card we think might be getting a little bit too much press and is a bit overrated. So what do you go first? What do you think is the best card in fire in this new set?
It's a toss-up for me between 2 cards, but they both work together, and I think I have to give it to... Oh, God, it's so tough. I have to give it to Interceptor. Interceptor is single-handedly going to pull 6 straight into Tier 1 again. And
so what does Interceptor do?
So Interceptor is a 2-cost, he's a 2-cost backup. Job dog. Category 6.
He's a good boy.
He's a good boy. He's the best boy. And the card named Shadow you control gains plus 1,000 power and haste. So we talked about the Shadow Legend earlier, and part of this card being so good is how good the Shadow Legend is, and the fact that you probably always play it with it. And then its ability is for 1 of any color, and then tapping Interceptor. You choose 1 Category 6 forward you control, and it gains haste until the end of turn. Now the thing is, Final Fantasy VI already has a lot of very, very powerful cards in the ice element that do things like discard when they enter the field and discard when they hit your opponent. And they also have cards that dull when they attack if you have a lot of 6 characters, and freeze characters when they hit your opponent. And all of these cards are threatening enough to be top tier already, and giving them all haste on a card that synergizes with the category and the character requirements is really, really powerful. And I think anybody who's been playing games this weekend has already seen exactly how strong some of that stuff can be. It works a lot with it helps enable the Cyan and the whole samurai cleave archetype that we talked about. It makes Shadow just absolute gasoline, since he's going to be getting all that advantage that we talked about and also probably attacking that same turn. And it puts the other card that I was tying with it potentially for the best card in the set, Saban, way over the top. It it makes him just take over a game when he's played because of that backup. And it's costed so well. The fact that it's just one and it can be any color, so it works great in all the dual decks. The fact that this is a 2-cost backup, everything about this card is just really, really good.
Agreed. So both of those cards are excellent. My pick is Braska's Final Aeon.
That's fair.
He's a hammer.
That's absolutely fair, Gino.
He is the apex predator, maybe of the game. He's a 7 CP mean dad. Named Braska's Final Aeon with Mobius and Final Fantasy X categories. Job Final Aeon. He is 10,000 power, which is the highest we've seen on any card. He ties with 2 other cards, Yasmat and Eldnarsh, I think.
Yeah,
the other natural 10Ks.
New Sephiroth.
Oh, and New Sephiroth, right.
Yeah.
And when Braska's Final Aeon attacks or is chosen by your opponent's summons or abilities, choose up to 1 forward opponent controls, deal it 10,000 damage. This damage cannot be reduced. You can discard Braska's Final Aeon, choose 1 forward, deal it 10,000 damage. You can only use this ability if you control 2 or more job summoner forwards, and if Braska's Final Aeon is in your hand. So, my rationale is he's just the hammer. Like, if you can resolve him and protect him for even a turn, or give him haste, he will have paid for himself. He will kill something, and your opponent has to do something, not just something, they have to do something spectacular to kill him. There are only a handful of cards that kill him outright, and if they do so, they generally will trigger his ability, which will then allow you to 2-for-1 them. So, he's a big investment in terms of CP, but he is one of the only 7-cost cards that doesn't have like a fake 7-cost, like Fusoya or something, that I think is worth paying the 7 for. Like, I look at him and then I look at something like Falthanos from the last set, and Falthanos causes your opponent to play really oddly because they want to get around his ability. Like, it makes a bunch of removal awkward, it makes a bunch of static effects awkward, but at the end of the day, if you just attack into Falthanos, or if Falthanos wants to attack, he's just a 9K. Like, many decks can just deal with that. They can block it. They can combat trick around it. They can just attack into it and not care.
Yeah, you know that's my favorite thing to say about that card is to just attack.
Exactly. The answer to Falthanos is playing forwards and attacking with them.
Yeah.
But Braska's Final Aeon, if you let him sit and play for more than a turn, he's just going to delete a forward every turn. It's 10k damage that can't be reduced. And so I think that if you can haste him, if you can get into a position where your opponent has to target him and you can save him in any way, because, like, if they target him with a Diabolos and you have an Unsaganashi in play, you can respond by making him untargetable, but he will already have triggered his ability. So they'll get 10k damage to a thing for the trouble, and he will still survive. So there's a bunch of ways to make his ability super duper unfair, and I think that he's just, once he's in play, he's the thing that matters.
Raw power level, probably the highest card in this set, honestly.
Yeah, and I think that just because he's in this spot where 10k can't be prevented, kills everything. It kills every card unless they have pump effects or they have some sort of static buffs or you can't reduce it, so that's it. You just have to pump over it.
Yeah.
So I think that getting Braska's Final Aeon Supremacy is going to be relevant, like having Lebro so that yours is 11k and your opponent's is 10k. Though there is also Braska's Final Aeon Mutually Assured Destruction.
You just slam Kamari down next to him, man, and get all that, get that 10 protection going.
Oh, you can get that too, but if they target your Final Aeon with their Final Aeon, it triggers your Final Aeon.
Oh yeah, it's
target
a mess.
Theirs.
Yeah, and then it's just everybody's
back and forth forever.
Yeah, and then Sin resets Civilization again.
Yeah, and he also has 2 incredibly relevant types. Mobius allows Wind to find him really easily with Echo, and Wind can also find him with Brother. So he's a super nice card, and he also synergizes well with the Summoner jobs, which are available in Wind and Water.
He can also be hasted by Maya in Lightning.
In Lightning, yep.
He can also be tutored by Brother in Wind. He has a lot of synergies.
He can also be pumped by Mog Mobius.
And Waka.
And Waka, and yep.
He's he has a lot of support.
tons and tons of support. He's relevant in all the ways, and we haven't even talked about his second ability, because I don't know that it'll come up all the time, but I think Yunalesca and Garnet and Yuna are potentially all summoners that will see play.
They're all good cards, yeah.
They're all super good cards, and they all synergize nicely because water fire is really easy to assemble. So I think that just occasionally getting a free, like functionally a 2 CP 10k damage, totally relevant. So I just think he's a hammer. Like, a lot of games are going to end when he comes down and your opponent just can't answer him.
Yeah, I agree.
And he asks nothing of you, really.
Just the 7 CP.
Just if you can get the 7
Just a
CP.
chance. Just put me in, coach.
He demands so many answers, and he asks very little of you.
That's right.
So what do you think's a potentially overrated card?
Some people are going to get mad at me for saying this, but Cooch Aspel. I think. So this card, it's not that this card isn't good, but people act like because this card exists, fire will never ever be stopped again.
That's just not.
The fact is, it's got a tap ability, right? You have to sit there with this guy up, just like a Lael backup, ready to cancel my Valfor, right? Did Lael stop Valfor from being a playable card? Like, no, because what happens is they stack something on top of it, or they, get ready to play around it. It's really cool that there is a nice, fair counterplay mechanic. So we'll read Q Caspel is a 2-cost that when you tap him, he's a fire backup that says damage dealt to forwards opponent controls cannot be reduced this turn. So it prevents things like Cecil and Cagnazzo from reducing damage in water. It also prevents things like
Minwu and Aerith.
Minwu, Aerith, Ishtola, all these abilities that normally say things can't take damage at all. However, they did change an entire rule just because of this card and this ability, and that rule actually made the cards that people think this card stops forever better in most other situations.
Yep.
So I just think that this card, when we first saw it, it was maybe one of the nuttiest things about the set, and now it's like, just seems super okay.
Yeah, I think that this card, for me, I think it's very good, but I think overrated
is
is proper.
Thing. Yeah, but
I love that it's FFCC backup, so you can fetch it with Nordstalin, and Fire Wind is going to love just cleaving your board over and over and over again.
This card will definitely see play, yeah.
It's going to see a bunch of play, and I think that just an anecdote. This year at PAX East, I was playing some gunslingers, and I was playing Lightning, Water, Agrius, which is kind of one of my favorite decks to play. And I've had a tech card in that deck for the last little bit of Cecil, the Water Cecil, the 5 CP Cecil, because
it prevents all damage done.
It prevents all damage to not just himself, but other forwards dealt by summons and abilities. So he basically gives your whole team protection from damage-based spells as long as he's alive, but his drawback is he has to block. So he's easy to kill via combat, but if you're trying to remove stuff with summons or abilities, it's not going to work. So I played against an opponent who was running all mono fire removal, basically. And me just playing Cecil meant his whole deck didn't work. He couldn't interact with any of my things. He couldn't block any of my things. I just got in for free. That single card completely undermined the entire deck. Caspel gives fire control decks not just an out, but an out that's readily available that doesn't cost them anything, really. Like, they would play this card anyway. So I think that it allows a fire-based control deck to exist despite the hate in a way that it couldn't before. Like, you could just slide one card in and completely undo mono fire if you cared enough to do it.
Yeah. So one thing I say about this game, and this might sound weird if you come from a game where the color pie is very strict, right? But in Final Fantasy, I believe that, and while not a direct counter, but I think that every element should have a way to answer most mechanics as long as you're willing to go out of your way in deck construction.
Yes.
Right? So I believe that, most fire decks like Caspel doesn't proactively do anything for a very proactive color, right? But what it does is it stops this mechanic that they literally couldn't do anything about, because there's only 2 cards in all of Fire, I believe, that have effects that just break things, and both of them are Final Fantasy VI forwards that don't see any play. So it's like Fire just sits there, and they have no answer to what's now like 5 or 6 different wind cards and a water card that don't take any damage from their summons or abilities. So I think it's totally fair that they got counterplay for that. It's awesome that it's on a 2-cost backup that they just tap. That's a very, very fair, very good thing. I'm glad this mechanic was added. It's a good card. It's just not, it's not like the end of protection. You know,
No.
it's not the like the absolute like this is it, Fire can't be stopped card that a lot of people were acting like it was. Personally, is what I think.
I don't think it's Fire can't be stopped. I think that Fire-based control is a lot better.
Yeah,
and
for sure.
I'd like to see what you actually played in one of my Coffee and Bullshit last week.
Yes,
a
a Fire
Fire
deck.
control deck that I put together, and he helps that sort of deck a lot.
Yeah.
So I'm interested in it, but I think overrated. Like people were talking about him like he was going to be the end of a bunch of decks, and I think like many of the cards that he's directly countering are still totally playable because they were playable anyway.
Yeah, Minwu actually got better, so.
Minwu got better. Y'shtola, totally fine still. Like many of the cards that you played to get around Fire and kind of stacking of damage, now they have to pay this 1 CP tax on all of them, and then they get to stack their damage. It's fine.
Right, that's fair. Yeah, that's fair.
So I think for me, I'm not sure. Do people think Marsh is good?
I think people think Marsh goes in a deck where you just want to play Ritz off of Marsh, and that's his single job in life.
Okay.
Just activate.
That's what I was going to say about him. Like, I don't know if people think Marsh and the like Final Fantasy Tactics Advance cards are good.
No,
I think
most of
they
the
are
Tactics
good.
Advance cards are bad. You're like, I guess it's between Marsh and Shara.
Yeah.
Shara is actually great with Ritz. But we'll talk about those in a bit. But yeah, I don't know. I haven't seen much hype about him. Now, it was honestly one of the hardest things about that question, Gino, was that most of the cards that we thought were gas are as advertised, if not better.
Yeah.
And so it was hard to find one, like, even the one I picked is a good card. It's just not as good as, the hype said.
Yeah. I mean, Marsh, I don't think is very good. Like, I think Sabin, honestly, I think he's really, really good. But I think that dealing yourself 1 damage every turn, if your opponent is constructing their deck in a way to beat you in the race, is potentially, like, I think he's really good. But I think that the drawback of his damage might present itself more often than expected. Like, you can counterplay with stuff like Bahamut Zero or Hasty Forwards. Like, he wants you to put yourself at damage 5, and that's risky, depending on what you're up against and whether you have the ability to cancel a summon. And I think that there might be some FF6 games that felt like stomps that all of a sudden turn on a dime because your opponent just doled you once and then played like 1 or 2 haste forwards. Like an Alua and then Shoal and kill you.
Yeah, that's fair.
So I think it's just a card you need to be careful with. Like, putting yourself to damage 5 is a real cost. He gets really good when you do that, but
yes,
danger.
this is one of the reasons that I'm like on the fence with Dataluma.
Same thing.
Yeah.
But I like Dataluma more for just like the decks that would want a 2 CP 8K, like a Suicide Aggro deck that's really low curve. So moving next to Ice. What do you think's the Stone Cold best card in Ice?
So I believe you want a sleeper though for Fire, right? Or no?
Oh yeah, sorry, a sleeper. Yeah,
No,
sleeper
it's okay.
for Fire,
It's
my
okay.
bad.
It's okay. So I was gonna say I don't know how much of a sleeper he is after seeing a couple of games this weekend, but Cyan was gonna be my pick for a card that I didn't hear anybody talking about at all. I think is actually just kind of silly.
Yep.
And he's a rare for some reason,
Isn't that
which
dumb?
in this game is basically an uncommon for
Yeah,
the folks at home. Yeah.
he's savage. We discussed him earlier, but
Yes.
like if you build your deck, you don't even have to try really. Like getting a bunch of good. There's a lot of good samurai, and
Yeah.
he tutors backups. Like he makes all of them. Like getting your samurai to cleave for 5 every time they attack is trivial.
Yeah, the crazy thing is he basically tutors for 4 different backups in the deck, right? Because 3 of them are the multiplay.
Yep.
So like he can find 4 of your slots, so at any point he's good, kind of thing. Yeah.
The forwards he tutors are also really good, and they play nicely with Samurai too.
What about you? Do you think anything that we didn't already cover is a sleeper here?
Yeah, I think that for me, it's between Zack and Zidane.
Zidane, man. Yeah, Zidane is a crazy card.
So both of these cards, they're both really low curve aggro cards. Zack is 1 CP, Category 7 Soldier, 8k, 1 CP, 8k. Until at the end of each of your turns, choose one forward your opponent controls, discard 1 card from your hand. If you do so, deal it 5,000 damage. So he's costing you a card every turn if your opponent has a forward. But that's a big if. Like, if you can keep your opponent off of forwards, he has no downside. And his downside also deals 5,000 damage. So if you can stack just a little bit of damage on whatever you're trying to kill, Zack will efficiently finish the job. So you need to play a deck that really wants to be low curve. You don't care about some of your cards at a certain point. You're not trying to stack cards because you can't as long as Zack's in play.
Mm-hmm.
But he is the lowest cost 8k in the game. And his drawback when compared to cards like the Kane, that's like a 1 or 2 CP, but he flips sides if you have a dark card.
Yeah, he's a 3 CP 9k, I think, right?
Yeah, 3 CP 9k.
Which is crazy that's like, I would not be surprised if they printed one of those next set.
Yeah, and Leon, I think it is, the Dark Knight.
Yeah, 1 CP 8k.
Yeah, and he has another one where like
He
your opponent
switches sides as well.
gains control of it. So like compared to that, Zack is just super overstated. And if you're playing some sort of low curve aggro deck, I could see him definitely finding a place. Zidane similarly, he's a 2 CP Thief, Category 9, 2k power, haste. When Zidane deals damage to your opponent, choose one forward opponent controls, deal it 8,000 damage. So he's the card you hold in your hand. Your opponent drops shields even once. You play him, he comes in, he knifes an opponent and one of their forwards. So he's just this great tempo play.
Yeah, one of the cool things about this Zidane is this Zidane synergizes so well with everything that the Fire Water Final Fantasy IX deck is doing that you can actually just play it with the other Zidane. Like,
totally.
It synergizes so well, but fills such a different role that you just play them both and you get away with it because the other guy has the S ability.
Yep. The other Zidane snowballs early. This Zidane comes in late to get the last point of damage in, and he plays so well if you can. He already has haste, so you don't need to like grant anything. But if you can remove a blocker,
yeah,
he'll remove the blocker for good.
Mm-hmm.
So on Ice, what do you think is the Stone Cold best card in Ice?
Oof, the Stone Cold best card in Ice. That Stone Cold is a pun there, actually. Yeah. So I think that I'm going to have to give it, and this is maybe not the one that everybody would pick, but I'm going to go ahead and give it to Aeolus. Aeolus, whatever, however I pronounce this guy. Idolus, yeah. He's the 4-cost backup ice card. There's an EX burst that just picks any ice character and adds it to your hand. That card's insane. I'm just going to play 3 of it in any ice deck. Like, that card is just keyword good. It is... Ice has, like, it's the element that has Sephiroth specials. It's the element that has Lock specials. Like, are you kidding me? With this EX burst backup that gives me a character from my break zone and puts it in my hand, and, like, the control take cards away from your opponent element with powerful S abilities. That guy's really, really insane in a very basic kind of way. But for maybe a slightly less boring answer, I think maybe Barty.
Yeah, that's where I was going to go, so
yeah,
I can talk about him. Barthandalus, the Final Fantasy 13 character, 4 CP, Ice, Mobius and 13. He's a Foul C, 8,000 power. When Barthandalus enters the field, choose up to 2 forwards opponent controls, deal each of them damage equal to its power minus 2,000 at the end of each of your opponent's turns. Dull and freeze all the active backups opponent controls. So, first things first, in Ice Wind, he's nutso. You can search him out because he's category Mobius with Echo. He'll mark 2 things for their power minus 2k, which you can then clean up with any number of wind board cleaves. So he really easily sets up a 2 for 1 just by playing him. But once he's in play, your opponent can no longer play at instant speed without threatening to have all of every backup they've left up locked down for 2 turns. So you're basically forcing your opponent to commit to the board. And once he's down, you're probably playing sweepers, and you're forcing your opponent to play into your removal. They can't play around it. The only downside with him is he's just a 4-cost 8K, so like he can be killed.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that difficult anymore to kill a 4-cost 8K, but at least he's below 5, so he can't be killed by Diabolos. He can't be killed by some of the other really popular removal.
And they're going to have to use that removal that's at a premium, and you don't play this guy in a deck without other threats.
Yes.
You know? One of the best things this card has going for it is the same thing we were talking about earlier, that a lot of its text is relevant, and it's funny because the job is a popular job that's completely irrelevant, and the name doesn't help him, but the categories, he has 2 categories, and they both help him so much in the right colors that he slips right into a dual element deck almost better than any mono ice deck he will ever dream of being in.
Yeah, there's no ice card that cleaves as well as Wind does, or Lightning. Wind and Lightning, both of them have synergies with already damaged forwards and dealing extra damage to things that have already been damaged.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that either of those element combos, or all 3, he'll slot right into.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that he can, that there is a Ice Wind dual Moogle, then there's the Moogle that searches for him in Ice, and there's the Mobius Searcher in Wind, and Pandemonium being one of the cards we'll talk about in a bit.
We will.
This guy is just very, very well positioned for that deck. It's funny because I think, I pick, the most boring cards. I'm like, this backup, because I'm just I'm putting 3 of this in every ice deck I build from now on.
Yeah, and that's totally fair.
Thing.
What is power if not a card you're going to play in every single deck you build?
Right. I'm like, this card is powerful because it's just better than almost every other backup that costs the same amount. Ysael was already good. This card's just better than that card will ever be. But, it's just, I agree that Barty is probably the most powerful forward here, and is just, it's that snowball potential that we talk about, right? And that's exactly what you're looking for in one of those kind of control decks. The other, snowball control card is the Hero Orphan from this set, and I'm actually going to go right into, can I segue right into a card I think is overhyped because it's Orphan.
People like him? Okay.
I think people think that this card's really cool because they're so there's a little bit of an argument actually where people were unsure if this card triggers twice or once, because Orphan's a 5-cost 9K forward that says when Orphan enters the field or at the beginning of the attack phase during each of your turns, choose up to 2 forwards or monsters opponent controls and place 1 Doom counter on them. Then break all characters with 3 or more Doom counters placed on them. So the dream is you play this Orphan, and when you play it in main phase 1, it puts the counters on. Then you get into combat and it puts more counters on. And then if you do anything to, flicker it, like any Une or Renoa stuff, it will immediately break both of those forwards by putting on a 3rd counter when it re-enters. Or also, if it survives into the next turn, then, those things will die, and it's able to continuously just keep putting counters on cards. But I think that the fact that this thing is, people are talking about using a Renoa combo on a card that's only going to break 2 forwards. Let's wipe the board,
Yeah, kill all of them.
Yeah.
Kill them all. God sort them out.
It's cool that, again, it's Mobius and 13, a very powerful category combination. But without anything in this set that accelerated counters on forwards, Castalian Empire Sid was almost one of the craziest backups in the set. But without any way to, kind of fast forward the Doom counters on Orphan, it's, I think, a little bit overrated.
Yeah, and it name clashes with another great Orphan.
Maybe one of the best ice cards, yeah.
Yeah, I don't love this card for the reasons you just listed, and it's 5 cost, so I'd rather slip under Diabolos than walk directly into it.
That's fair. And what do you think is an overrated card here, Gino?
I think, I was going to go with Orphan. But,
oh, no, I'm sorry, I stole it.
No, it's fine. It's fine. I can find another one that I think is overrated, because I think that I see more underrateds than overrateds. I think Umaro,
yeah,
potentially.
maybe a little bit overrated, yeah.
A little bit. I have seen it played as just like a 7-cost beater.
I
that's
like
also
it better
removal.
than Scylla almost because it has, like, if I'm going to be paying 7, this thing better have the body that I'm paying for. And
Yes.
also, it's just got such a unique form of removal.
It
But
does.
at the same time, yeah, I really would have liked this guy at like a 6.
Yeah, he's 7 CP, Category 6, Yeti, 9K. If you control a card named Mog 6, the cost for playing Umaro onto the field is reduced by 2. When Umaro enters the field, choose one forward opponent controls, put it at the bottom of its owner's deck. At the end of each of your turns, choose one forward opponent controls, freeze it. So my problems are that it costs 7 for 9K. Like we talked about Angry Dad, Braska's Final Aeon.
Oh, yeah.
He's 7K also. He gets plus
He's 7
1,000 power
costs,
more.
sorry. Yeah, but he's 10k, yeah.
Yeah, 10K, so 1,000 power more. I don't think you're getting the Mog 6 discount on Umaro ever.
Yeah, the thing is, you're playing that to get the discount. You're forced to play
Water
a
Ice.
card in the wrong color that you're usually not playing anyway. That doesn't do anything for Umaro.
So unless in the next set or in the coming sets we get a Mog 6, that's maybe a backup or something.
That is the cool thing about this Umaro, is that every Mog 6 that they print, he just gets better.
Yes. The form of removal is really cool. Like breaking things, not putting things in the break zone is interesting.
He's burying them in snow.
He is, but the thing is, putting a card at the bottom of your opponent's deck in this game is not killing it in the way that it is in some other games. It removes it from play, certainly, but it adds a card to your opponent's deck, so they will deck slower, which is a threat in this game. And it also means they can search it again. They can draw it naturally if the game goes long. So I actually would prefer if that was just like an RFG or something like that.
Yeah.
As cool as it is, I think
Because,
it's actually less
RFG
powerful.
actually can't be like
Interactive
prevented either.
Yeah.
So while this is something that doesn't have any mechanic that interacts with it, it's like RFG, the same thing can be said about it. So I agree with that.
Yeah, and then when the freezing a forward every turn is cool, but you're paying 7. Like that's not enough, I don't think.
Yeah, and meanwhile Bartandalus is freezing all the active backups, dulling and freezing all the active backups at 4 cost 8k. Like at the end of the turns, this guy could have maybe freeze the forwards, like all forwards. That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah,
I
just
don't know.
think that Umaro, because I've seen him played as like a 1 or a 2 of as the 7 cost of like I'm going to have this thing that also kills something.
Mm-hmm.
But when I compare him to cards like Fusoya, like Braska's Final Aeon, the real hammers that people play, Fina,
Right.
he just doesn't match up.
Yeah, I agree.
So underrated card. I've got one if you need to think.
You go ahead.
Setzer.
Yeah, that's fair. He's maybe the only gambler card I could get behind.
He's 4 CP, Setzer, 8,000 power, Dissidia Final Fantasy, and FF6. He's a gambler, and when Setzer enters the field, each player randomly discards 1 card from their hand. Then any player who discards a Category 6 card draws 1 card, and then he has an S ability, Slots. Reveal the top card of your deck. If the revealed card's CP cost is odd, break all of the dull forwards opponent controls. If the revealed card's cost is even, activate all characters other than Setzer you control and draw 2 cards. So I think that Setzer, in a Category 6 deck, the chances of him... Well, one, you know what your hand is when you play Setzer. So you know if you've only got 6 cards in your deck. So stacking it so that Setzer always makes your opponent discard and makes you draw is actually not that hard, especially in a Category 6 deck. The main problem with him is that he clashes with the other Setzers. So he's got a bad name clash. But I think that you can, because of Slots, potentially play him in addition to some of those other Setzers. And Slots, both sides of it are really strong.
Yeah.
The break, it's unconditional. It's just all dull forwards. Ice does not have that. Usually it has Zalera, who only breaks prime numbers. Setzer just gets rid of all of it. And then his other side, activate and draw 2, is also very powerful. So I think that he's a consideration for a 6 deck. I'm not seeing anyone try it yet. But I think that people are underestimating how powerful random discard is. and how easy it is to set up in a 6 deck specifically, that upside.
Yeah, the price is right on the S ability too, and the fact that activate all characters and draw 2 cards is just absolutely wild. Like replacing the card from your hand and then activating all your backups is very, very strong. Yeah, I agree. It's funny. I love the flavor on his second ability slots. Even though it is slots and not coin toss, which is what I would really like it to be. God, can you imagine if that ability was called coin toss, Gino? Because it's so one or the other, right? It's heads or tails. It's odds or even. So it's a win-win. So to me, it's like flipping the double head coin that that Celis uses against him. It's because that's Edgar's trick coin. Yep. It would just be a cool little flavor nod. But yeah, no, it's a gambler mechanic where the house always wins, Gino. And
ain't that the way of things?
I can't wait for this guy because we have all of the gambler jokes in the Octagon and on our stream, and I hope that people start playing this guy because it's just going to be nothing but fun.
And he's going to be nuts in title.
Oh yeah, for sure, for sure. Also, he's broken in the city of Final Fantasy Opera Omnia, which is where this art is from. So he's nutso busted in that game. So I'm glad that he's also good here.
There's a card that you've called out to me before, if you're still thinking.
Go ahead. A card that I've called out to you before that I think is underrated.
Gentiana.
Gentiana, I don't think is underrated. I think that people are very aware of this card and what it can do. The one thing that I think is underrated is the horrible bungling of the word abilities on this card. It says Abelites, but that's okay. It was a mistake. We
Oh no.
They know. They now know. A card that I think is underrated. This 1 CP Shiva summon, Gino.
Hell yeah.
This 1 CP Shiva, first of all, it's
Name
a
Shiva.
great Shiva for the Shiva mechanic. Yeah, exactly. And it's an EX burst, so now we can perfectly fill our deck with EX burst Shivas to make all the Shivas better. It's great. Also, it costs 1, so it immediately makes the hero Shiva from last set better because we didn't have a Shiva that was kind of like worth playing in tandem with it. Yep. And that like didn't cost a bunch of cards in our hand, but we can actually just tap all of our backups to do both of these Shivas now. But honestly, this is just a 1 cost. Choose a dull forward, deal at 6,000 damage, and if it's received 5 or more, deal at 9,000 instead. Let's just look at Glazia and how Glazia is like normally not even a kill anymore. You kind of have to do a 1-2 punch, but it's still strong enough because of those effects. This Shiva immediately takes things like Sid Reigns that were just about to fall out of favor and brings them straight back up into, like just absolute kill shot territory. This Shiva with 4 CP Celas, this Shiva with any of those like little ping effects in ice, she's going to finish the job, and the 9,000 damage, if your opponent has received 5 points of damage, is that is the kind of damage that ice doesn't normally have access to.
Yeah, if they were so foolish as to take 5 damage and dull a forward, it's dead.
Well, I mean, the nice thing about that is you can use things that you're doing to dull, because ice has access to a lot more dull than it does to dull and remove the guy in the same effect. So it's really cool that if you're going to have to combo this with a dull effect, that it only costs 1. I mean, the price doesn't get any better for a combo piece than that.
Sure. Certainly does not. So now moving on to Wind. What do you think is the strongest Wind card in this set?
Chelinka.
Chelinka? Agreed.
I think it's Chelinka, and I'm not just biased because my team got to see it early and kind of spoil it. I think that there's actually a lot of cards in this Wind set that are good, which is normally not a surprise. But this Chelinka unlocks things in almost every single color, in almost every single archetype, and is one of the most tutorable backups in one of the, again, most rainbow-enabled backup engines in the whole game.
Now it is rainbow, finally.
Yeah, it is, everything about it is, what were they missing? What did it get?
Lightning.
I mean, I think
Lightning did not have it.
It didn't have lightning? It didn't.
No.
Is Argy not a,
No.
Not.
Argy
Okay.
is, I think Argy is a, What's the one that like not Barbarisha, Barbara, and I think he's FF.
Oh, he is. You're right. He's FFL. Yeah.
FFL.
You're right. Yeah. So now it has lightning. So because of the 3-drop backup, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So it's everything about Chelinka is positioned to help literally any forward in the entire game that does something when it attacks. This unlocks so many combos. Yeah. I think it's just an incredibly powerful effect.
Yeah, so it's 3 CP for card name Chelinka, FFCC, Ley Crystal user, backup. When she enters the field, choose one forward until end of turn. It gains Brave, and this forward can attack twice in the same turn. And then if that isn't good enough, win, dull, you can return Chelinka to your hand. So you can just keep doing it.
Yeah, on the same card, it lets you just reuse the effect.
Yeah, why? Why work for it? I think that Chelinka plus Archangel HM, just like get them. Just 4 CP, 4 damage to the face. Pretty sweet with Ritz. Really sweet because you get to attack with Ritz, activate the backups. You can bounce Chelinka immediately, attack with Ritz again.
Yeah, you can, in that same deck, playing like the Yuri that you can tap 3 backups to use 3 different abilities. You just attack with Ritz and use both Yuri abilities on attack before they get to block. I mean, and we're just scratching the surface with things this card can do. I mean, like, I talked about it earlier, actually, when we were talking about the turn 1 that I asked if you had seen, where there's a card, Luso, he's a 2-cost forward, that if you have forwards of 5 or more different elements, when he attacks, he automatically deals a point of damage before he even gets through the blockers. And then Yuri is a light forward, a 4-cost light forward, that has all of the elements except for Dark. So when these cards are out together, Luso is automatically turned on, and I literally had Luso out, and then it was Luso Yuri, pass, and then next turn Chelinka. And I attacked with Luso for 4 damage on turn 2.
Gross.
I put my opponent to 5 on turn 2. Yeah.
And that's with 3 cards.
Yeah, exactly. This Chelinka just enables so many things.
Agreed. And if Chelinka's taken, I'm going to say Pandemonium.
Yeah, why?
So it's another one of these 1 CP summons. It's 1 CP, category Mobius, EX Burst, because why not? You can choose up to 1 backup you control, activate it, and deal 2,000 damage to all the forwards opponent controls. If your opponent has received 5 points of damage or more, activate it and deal 4,000 damage to all forwards opponent controls instead. So it is a free 2 CP cleave to the board, which, I don't know. John, have you heard of this card called Valfor? I think people like it.
Yeah, so there's a card that's a 2-cost card that is, it's free in the sense that if you're playing a very specific named card, it activates all of your backups. Yeah, Yuna. Activates all of your backups. Pandemonium doesn't care what you're playing. It will always activate at least 1 backup, so it will always at least itself be free. Valfor can kind of give you back CP, which is pretty stupid.
Problem.
But so can Pandemonium when you're pushing your opponent to 5 damage. At that point, you could argue that maybe it's a little bit win more. But even when we're neck and neck, that's going to be 5 and 5. This helps me break right through any kind of stalemate, any kind of late game type of thing. But the fact that it's in the same color as backups like Penelo, where, basically what we're doing is we're casting a summon for free that lets us, 4K the board. Yep. Well, it's not going to be free, but what we're doing is we're comboing this. We're doing this with, like, Barty that we were just talking about. Yeah, Fina, with Valfor itself. With Penelo, with Diabolos, with things like Yuri Triggers, with things like Ritz. I mean, this card, like, why? People are complaining about Valfor doing too much and being too free, and they want it banned. And
this card is Valfor, but it doesn't have the upside.
Best friend. This thing can be chained off of Valfor.
It has a higher floor than Valfor and a lower ceiling, but being in the conversation is dumb.
If you do the Yuna thing, if you do the Yuna double cast, you can just chain Valfor into Pandemonium.
Yeah, go for it.
You can go Cyclops, Valfor, Pandemonium.
So, what do you think is an overrated card in Wind?
An overrated card in Wind.
Hot take.
Go ahead, hit me.
Edge.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Let's go.
So he's a 2 CP, wind forward, 5,000 power. He's a ninja, category 4. The cost required to play your job ninjas or card name ninja onto the field is reduced by 1 and can be paid with CP of any element. When a job ninja or card name ninja other than Edge enters your field, place 1 shuriken counter on Edge, remove 1 shuriken counter from Edge, choose 1 forward, deal it 3,000 damage.
Mm-hmm.
Edge is great. Okay? He does a lot of cool things.
Mm-hmm.
He fixes your ninja deck's elements. He reduces costs. He does a lot of things that you really want him to do. He makes ninjas playable by himself. However, he is a 2 CP 5K, and if you're going to... I see people doing like 3-element ninja decks or 4, like they're going wild with it.
Mm-hmm.
Edge is a 2 CP 5K. If he dies, your deck doesn't function. And having gone through FF8 with Renoa, where Renoa is this super powerful 2 CP 5K, as long as she's in play, you're doing great. And then if your opponent sneezes on her, she dies and your deck stops working. I'm worried about a card that encourages you to deck build in such a way that you can just get blown out that hard when you're relying on this forward that is very killable. Luckily, he's in an element that is the best at protecting its forwards, so you might be able to get away with it. But speaking of just like the cleaves we just went through, he gets picked up by every cleave. So even if you're protecting him, you need to really protect him. You need to have Unsaganashi, you need to have Aerith, like you have to have everything so that he just doesn't get incidentally killed. And a lot of the things that he's doing allow you to play to the board really effectively. His shurikens pick off forwards really effectively, or allow you to, finish off forwards. But if he's not in play, or if your opponent doesn't have forwards for the shurikens, he's not doing all that much for you. And that's what I worry with him. I think he's a good card. I think you should build around him. I would say if you're going to build around him, probably stick to 3 colors at most.
Mm-hmm.
I think you want to be Fire, Lightning, Wind, or just Lightning, Wind. Because I think that those are the best payoffs are in those elements. But I think that you just need to be careful because your ninjas, your star player, unlike Braska's Final Aeon, where your star player, even if they kill him, you get value. If Edge dies, you get nothing.
Mm-hmm. Good day, sir.
Yep.
You lose. So for me, overrated card, I think Warrior of Light. A little
That's
bit.
Fair.
The thing about this card is not... So he's a 3-cost wind forward 7k power called Warrior of Light, Job Warrior of Light. Category 1, which is cool, because Final Fantasy 1 got a little bit of love this set. I mean, I don't know if you can call it love. The backups for Light and Dark were pretty good. But it got some cards this set. Has been suspiciously, light on the cards. I actually don't even think you can completely assemble a Final Fantasy 1 title deck. Maybe you can now.
Not without special
yeah.
category.
But when Warrior of Light enters the field during this turn, the next damage dealt to you becomes 0 instead. So that's player damage, right? And then he has an active ability that costs 0, which is always great. Choose 1 forward other than Warrior of Light against plus 2,000 power until the end of the turn. During this turn, when that forward is put from the field into the break zone, Warrior of Light deals you 1 point of damage. You can only use this ability once per turn. So let's compare this to Sabin, right? The most obvious comparison. Yeah, you're already ahead of me here. So Warrior of Light can buff anybody, right? That's the whole thing. That's what he's doing. That's the flavor, right? Is that he is choosing somebody other than himself and giving them 2,000 power. And then if that card dies, he deals you a point of damage. And when he's played, he synergizes with assuming that effect, right? You're assuming that you're going to be buffing something and attacking with it, and they're not going to be able to block it because it's big and the drawback doesn't exist, right? But in reality, like, they probably just, don't mind blocking this thing so much because there isn't a drawback for them. Like, you still trade with this forward unless it got too big. The fact that they mitigated it not dying is fine because it's basically just like they just play this 3-cost summon kind of thing on you. I don't know he's like, where does he fit? He's a little too slow. He's a little weird. His job and his name like synergize the best with cards that don't want him. They want other versions of Warrior of Light. I don't know. I just think
that his home is in a Vaughn deck.
Yeah, to put you to 5, kind of, to like force it.
He puts you at 5. He
Well, he
the
tries
2CP,
to, right? Like it only happens if they kind of like let it happen, and if like
I-
things work the right way.
I think you play it in Fire Wind specifically with Sabin.
Yeah.
So you get both
Okay,
of them,
okay.
and then Warrior of Light puts your other. So the problem with Von decks, I find, is that if your opponent just plays a 10k or just plays a card that's very big, your forwards tend to top out at 7 unless you're at 5 damage, and then Lease makes your forwards go nutty.
And they actually feel pretty bad to party with, unlike other Swarm decks.
Yeah,
Because you like don't want to lose 2 3Ks into your opponent's 5K, or 3 costs into your opponent's 5 costs. Like
exactly. And a lot of those cards are value generating just by being in place. Having them sit in play is half of the thing. So this Warrior of Light allows those forwards to rumble over forwards they wouldn't be able to otherwise. So I think that that's his home, but I think it's a narrow home. Like you want him, you wouldn't even want him to be a 3 of, I don't think, in that deck. You'd probably want him as a 2 at most. But he plays very nicely with Sabin. So like Sabin comes down, you can pump him, and then once you're at 5 damage instead, maybe you're pumping him with Warrior of Light instead, and then still getting the 9k damage. But that's a niche situation, and like you said,
I think that's all his situations, though. It feels like he's just so niche, yeah.
But if you're in a situation where what you don't want to do is pump this and then trade, because if your opponent was able to trade a card and deal you a damage and kill your forward, you're not doing it right. You need that 2k to be enough to put your forward over your opponent's stuff. And be very certain when you're using that ability that they're not just going to blow you out with a removal spell.
Yeah,
that feels terrible.
And like technically, like I mean, we can play this guy in a deck where we're playing the Una forward, and we're gonna try and cast Zodiark and Cascade down, right? Like, I mean, he's good for the Zodiark combo, where Zodiark breaks all of your opponent's forwards and deals you 1 point of damage for each, and Warrior of Light would negate that. But we already have a card that does that. That like the combo exists and it was used sometimes, but I don't think it saw widespread success at all, and it's just so clunky in a game where, like we talked about, sequencing is so important and it matters so much, and you're just holding this guy, like waiting for the window, and when you find that perfect window and slam him down, oh boy, is he good. But otherwise, you're just like waiting and waiting. He's waiting for his chance. He's a character actor. We just don't need this character right now.
Yeah, he's modern day Steve Buscemi.
Yeah, sorry, Warrior of Light. Go be on some kind of like, made for TV series.
Yeah, being a made for TV series playing God.
Yeah, there you go.
So underrated card in Wind.
I'm ready for this one.
I've got mine.
Go ahead, ready? So we'll say it on 3. 1, 2, 3.
3.
Hooded Man.
Chocobo?
Okay. Go ahead. Chocobo, because you've been playing all about this. You've been very into this. Talk about this Chocobo.
Yeah, so it's simple. It's a 3-cost, 3 CP Chocobo, 5k power. It's the standard unit. Final Fantasy II, who cares what its category is? Its name is Chocobo, and it's a multi-unit. When Chocobo is put from the field to the break zone, you may search for one job Chocobo or card named Chocobo and add it to your hand. So this Chocobo, with all the other Chocobos combined, now get us to 33 cards named Chocobo, which puts us at, I think, the critical mass, or like damn near close to the most amount of cards named Chocobo you'd want to play in a Chocobo deck, so that your fat Chocobo can draw 4 to 5 cards routinely. So with the math, with fat Chocobo, if you have 33 Chocobo hits in your deck and you're playing fat Chocobo on turn 1, your hit rate with 33 cards is 49% to get 4 or more. So you're a coin toss to get 4 or more. You're 80% to draw 3 or more. Your fail rate is 1%. So this card, just adding to the cumulative number of Chocobos, I think we've gotten to the point where the Chocobo deck can routinely just go turn 1, fat Chocobo, then drop 3 Chocobos in one turn, and just say deal with it.
Yeah, and he does the right stuff, right? Like, he's, again, not one of the ones with the weird... I mean, we're looking at you, Bobby Corwin. He's not a Chocobo that has the job Chocobo. He's got the name, which is what matters. He does something relevant for the Chocobo deck while he's on the field.
He searches fat Chocobo.
That's right. He's one of our... he's maybe the only good chump block Chocobo. I mean, the other ones are good because they're just cheap, and that's what they do. But this guy actively wants to trade, and he keeps you going. He keeps the Choco chain running.
And if you get swept, he will get you going again.
Yeah, he's like, go get another fat chocobo, or go get another, Choco Knight, or the chocobo that plays the chocobo, or whatever.
Exactly. And up until now, the chocobo deck, if your opponent just like played a Fina, they could just kill you right there. Like they'd stop your whole chain. If this chocobo is involved, you can just start the chain right back up, and they're in a bad place again.
Yeah, and again, he's a multiplay guy, so you can have two and get two chocobos when you get wiped.
Yep, I'm going to get the one that plays a chocobo for free, and I'm going to get one with haste.
Yeah. It's exactly like you said. It's just we hit the critical mass. We have enough chocobos now. In breaking news, enough chocobos.
And it turns out if you can just spew out like 3 forwards on turn 1 and a backup, and then on turn 2 make another play, there's a lot of decks that just can't deal with that. There are decks that just want to play a good, clean, fair game. They signed up for 20 minutes no rush, and you picked Zerg.
Yeah, you got the tool pool on them. Or sometimes chocobos feels like like the cannon rush in the base. Like you go first, especially if you're first, right? Like, okay, I draw a card, I don't know what you're playing. I discard a card, I play it back up. And by the time I find out what you're playing, you're inside of my base, and I'm scrambling to somehow find enough resources just to stop you from building the damn cannons, much less actually.
Just let me live.
I can't even. There's nothing I can do to kill the cannons. Like, the ones that you've gotten down are down. I need to try and stop you from getting more of them down. And it's just like, that's the chocobos. It's like, you can't spot remove these guys. You either clean out the entire strategy in one fell swoop, you kill the pylon, you're strong enough to kill the pylon, or you just get cannon rushed.
Yeah, and I think that the chocobos, especially if you don't know what's up, you just lose.
Yeah, like anybody who responds to your fat chocobo play on your first turn with like, all right, I guess I'll keep setting up my backups.
No.
Has lost.
No, I'm going to play Shemhazai, and then it won't matter what you played.
Yeah, like you can't take like 3 damage now and then stop the next 4. Like, you can't afford to get hit starting right now.
Yeah, they are the Mike Tyson of decks, and I think now they'll be more effective. The famous Mike Tyson quote, everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face.
Yeah, it's chocobos. Exactly. That's very fitting for that deck. I think you messaged me today and said, Rampair is one of the most popular combo decks. It's like a combo and control-ish style. And you said to me today, does it have literally no answer to chocobos? Yeah, because
0%, right?
They just, they don't do anything. They don't play any cards. Like, again, remember how earlier on this cast, I said that there's a counter for everything in every color if you choose to go out of your way to do it. There are plenty of very easy ways for them to stop the chocobos. They just choose not to play them for their greed, for their Rampair greed, what they want to cheat all of these things into play. They want to do all of these specific things, and they end up in a situation where, like, they have to double shoal you just to kill the bottom half of the birds, and that's all they can do. Otherwise, they can kill them one at a time with things they can't afford to trade with.
Punish them for their greed and their hubris.
That's exactly what you do, though. That you're punishing them for everything that the deck does to take advantage of, like, just cheating cards into play.
Oh, that's awesome. You're going to break one of your backups to play Kane to kill my bird that I vomited on turn 1. None of them matter.
I didn't pay for the guy who played this guy for free.
Yeah. I so don't care.
Are you kidding? Yeah. This guy was double free. Yeah.
What, you say your guy's 9 costs? That's funny.
Exactly, dude.
Shemhazai, nothing you play blocks.
Exactly. It's like you're driving like this like little like lemon, like you just got this thing for like $300 from your neighbor, and somebody just crashes into it with like their Beamer, and you're like, sweet, I make out on this. Like, yeah, all right, I'll take the insurance on this one. You sure you wanted to do that? It seems a lot worse for you than it was for me.
Okay.
We both just had a car, and now we both don't, and it really worked out in my favor here. I definitely got the higher value trade. So for me, it's Hooded Man. It's Hooded Man.
Who is he?
Who could he be? Well, you can't play him when Kane's on the field unless, and Gino, hear me out. You play the 3-cost 9K Kane, and then you break your dark character and send Kane to the other side of the field, and then you play Hooded Man, and then you play a dark character, and you get Kane back.
And then the space-time continuum ruptures.
Yeah, but it's legal. You can legally resolve having them both on the field at the same time.
That's true.
Anyway, Hooded Man is a 4-cost wind forward, 7k power. It's a little understated, but bear with me. He's an EX burst, and his first line of text, and this is so weird. It always looks weird when the EX burst isn't the first line. His first line of text says, you cannot play Hooded Man or card name Kane while already in control of either character, because Hooded Man is Kane. EX burst.
He's not a fucking Dragoon.
When Hooded, he's a, huh? Question mark? When Hooded Man enters the field, choose one category 4 forward other than card name Hooded Man in your break zone added to your hand. At the end of each of your turns, activate all the category 4 forwards you control. Okay. So, let's look at one of my favorite 4-cost EX burst tutors, Puge. Puge has a relevant job, but he can only really get 2 relevant cards, a few more now, and he's 5k, right? Yeah, now he can get Puck, he can get all kinds of stuff. It's very fun. But Hooded Man searches your break zone for some of the most relevant cards ever printed in a Final Fantasy trading card game. Man, this category is loaded with killers, okay? And he puts it in your hand, and then at the end of each of your turns, you activate all of the 4 forwards you control. This card is overstated for what it does, has a really good EX burst, in a, like, oops all forwards, deck, in an oops all category 4 deck, you don't need the 3-cost Wind Kane. And none of the other Kanes click into the right colors. Yep. Like, this guy is really, really neat for either Earth Wind, Wind Water, Mono Wind 4. All 3 of those are viable shells, I think. And also Tricolor.
Agreed.
This card is really, really cool. Activating all the 4 forwards you control at the end of the turns is really strong. Also, especially if you are giving them Brave with Rydia, and you're using 2 of your forwards to summon Theodore from the break zone.
Which is adorable.
Yeah.
That's an adorable play. How cute.
When I was about to do that play, somebody said, "You're making babies." I said, "Oh, I guess, yeah, it's literally what I'm doing, huh?" They're laying down with each other, and then they make Theodore.
Look at him.
Wow,
he's an 8K.
Pop. Yeah, he's a fresh-born baby, 6 pounds, 8K power.
Yep.
But yeah, so I really like Hooded Man. I've been brewing a lot with him in the 4 packages.
Yeah, I think he's just solid value. Like, does a lot of the things you want. No muss, no fuss. If he was just a fucking Dragoon.
If only, huh? Man, then he would work with Lightning Wind.
Yeah,
but I mean,
he doesn't.
They give you so many Canes and Lightning, and it's crazy that what he does is different enough that he'd be pretty cool. But I think it's interesting that, like, come the after years, Cecil and Kane both become Wind characters.
Yeah, it's odd.
Like, at the end of this, are we just gonna have, like, everybody has a Wind card where they're like a god, like a good guy, like their best paladin self? I mean, all the other paladin Cecil cards are water, but I think the only after years one is the Wind one, right?
I thought that one was...
Oh, maybe the Opus 9 one might be.
I thought 4 was the CG version. I think it's the Opus 9 backup that's the after years one. I think.
Oh, that's right. That's right. It is. The Opus 9 backup is the after years one. And the one, the starter deck one is a Dissidia alternate costume.
Oh, okay.
That's right. Heroes versus Villains, all of them are Dissidia costumes.
So the next element we have up is Earth. Earth, Stone Cold best card.
Oof. Is it Tifa? I don't know.
Probably is Tifa.
She's pretty good. And actually...
It's Tifa or Exodus, I think.
Honestly, so I was going to say Tifa's pretty good, but it's less how good Tifa is and more that Earth, not super exciting in this set.
No.
Which is fine. Like, you know, it's time to maybe pump the brakes. Earth has a lot of really weird cards this set that, like, are very specific, like super oddly specific. And a lot of cards that are contending for, like, card I will never play the most in set. But as far as cards that I think is the best, it's somewhere between Tifa, Tyro, and Tilica. It's funny because they're all T's. right on top of each other. But I'm going to go ahead and give it to Tifa just because the cards that we haven't been talking about too much, the starter deck, the 10.5 as people call them cards, the Opus XI starter deck cards that are Final Fantasy VII related, are so powerful. Like cards like Kadaj. The last thing that cards like Kadaj and Cloud and 5CP Cloud and all the Sephiroth cards need is an ability that says that they cannot be broken by summons or abilities that don't deal damage, which this Tifa has as one of her abilities. So let's just read this Tifa. She's a 5-cost 9k, so that's exactly the power level you want for a 5-cost. If you control a card named Cloud, the cost for playing Tifa onto the field is reduced by 1 and can be paid with CP of any element. Always
Gross.
Nice. Yeah, very, very nice. Actually enables Tifa to be a 2-card combo and any element with another card we'll talk about later. The
With,
category
several other cards.
Yeah. The category 7 forwards other than Tifa you control gain 2,000 power and brave. Okay. I think that maybe more than any other Final Fantasy game, Final Fantasy 7 forwards always have S abilities. Like, half of them have very, very relevant S abilities that require them to tap themselves.
Yeah, 6 and 7, I think, are the two that have the most S abilities. And it's a nice flavor nod, I think. 7 with the limit breaks, and then 6 because all of the characters have action abilities.
That are super unique. It is really cool. But yeah, so like this Tifa, basically at the cost of her not enabling any of the Tifa S abilities, becomes the single best card for synergy with every single Final Fantasy VII card that has a tap ability, which, oh boy, wow, wouldn't it so happen to turn out that most of the best ones have tap abilities. And damage 3, Tifa gains what we were talking about earlier. The category 7 forwards you control cannot be broken by opposing summons or abilities that don't deal damage. Well, that works really well with the fact that they're all plus 2k, and brave.
Yeah.
So only twice have I seen this card on the field, and both times it was absolutely terrifying. Because what happens is they play a Final Fantasy VII card like Kadaj, that's very difficult to interact with because he removes himself from the game at the end of the turn. Then they play like a Cloud, like a 5CB Cloud, and you go, well, all right, I'm not going to kill that right now, right? He came in, and he did his ability, and now he's not as scary, right? If I try to kill it, he might do it again, they might play another one. And then all of a sudden the Tifa comes out, and the board goes from like, I can deal with this a little bit at a time, to completely unmanageable. Everything is unblockable. Genesis comes down as a 9k with Brave. Like, Cloud is an 11k with Brave. Sephiroth is like a 9k with, or 10k with Brave.
And we were talking about this in Fire Ice. Like, Earth doesn't even need to be involved.
Yeah.
Tifa can just come in. Who cares?
Yeah.
LOL, who cares?
The back attack Sephiroth comes in as an 8k Brave.
Yep.
Who can't be broken by things. And damage 3 is, we were joking when we were talking about this at Coffee and Bullshit, we were joking that I wake up at damage 3.
Yeah.
I start my day at damage 3.
Damage 3 is very reasonable.
Damage 3 is when I have my first cup of coffee.
5 is danger zone. 5 is end of the day. I can't anymore. But damage 3, I'm very comfortable being at damage 3.
Yeah, I don't remember what it's like to be at like damage 1 or 2. I've been living my life at damage 3 for a while now. Yeah, so she's my pick. If I have not rambled on long enough about her here.
Yeah, I like Exodus FF Tactics Advance, so
What a
it's 1
good
CP
card.
Earth. EX Burst, Tactics Advance. It's choose 1 forward until end of turn. It gains plus 3,000 power, Brave, and this forward cannot become dull by your opponent's summons or abilities. And this forward cannot be returned to its owner's hand by your opponent's summons or abilities. If your opponent has received 5 points of damage or more, all forwards you control gain all previous effects instead. They have to say all previous effects instead because there's too much text to enumerate it again.
It's one of those stories where like you and I just started talking about, it was like, hey, let's go one word at a time. It's like the astronaut went to the moon and then it's just like you just keep adding to the story and you just keep adding to the story. And it's almost this run-on sentence where, like, this guy just does more and more and more and more. And, it's another 1-cost EX Burst.
Yeah, and this summon, it does everything Earth summons want to do. It's like the 1 CP Titan from the last set, except it gives you all of the... It picks one mode and just gives you a better version of that one mode. So it plays nice with that Titan. Mm-hmm. It plays nice with Graviton. The plus 3K is super big for 1 CP. Brave, super relevant. Not being dullable is a great counter to things like Snow. Great counter to a lot of ice abilities. And the fact that it also blows out bounce effects, just why not? Sure.
Yeah,
Why not?
I mean, hey, why not add that on the card? Yeah, I mean, I'll take any extra add-ons, any freebies.
The last one, if your opponent's at 5 damage, just blow them out completely, because 3K power is just enough to win most combats if you're playing reasonably sized forwards. So I think that this card, once you get your opponent to 5 damage, this might be the most devastating of all of the 1 CP summons.
Yeah, and also I think that Earth has a lot of the, like, again, we were just talking about how relevant Brave is for Tifa to give the 7 forwards. Earth has a lot of, like, game-ending S abilities on cards. And the Exodus, meaning, like, then they're at 5 damage, and now all these guys are able to both attack and use these abilities. Like, Earth is coming to close out the game the turn they cast this card.
Which is nice, because Earth, up until now, kind of stalls the game out and sometimes can have trouble finishing.
They certainly don't have any board-wide, like, finisher summons.
Yeah. Giving them the ability to close the game on a 1 CP summon, I think, is super relevant. So, overrated cards.
Overrated card in Earth, I might say this new Barret, but it's gonna have to be Ursula.
Yeah. I think it has to be Ursula.
Now, the reason that I almost chose a different card is because I never overrated this card. I feel like the picture of, what's it from, Zoolander, where Will Ferrell's character says, like, I feel like I'm taking crazy pills.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just compared to literally every other card in this set that has tribal synergies, this card seems like a joke. People were so excited about this card. Yeah, go ahead.
4 CP, Category 4, Monk, 5K power. When Ursula enters the field, choose one Job Monk or Card Name Monk of cost 2 or less in your break zone, play it onto the field, put one Monk, Job Monk or Card Name Monk other than Ursula into the break zone. So this is an activated ability. Select one of the 2 following options until end of turn. Ursula gains plus 4,000 power in Brave, and choose one forward, deal it damage equal to Ursula's power. So she's really good as, like, your turn 1 play in a Monk's deck. If you can go Yang into Ursula to play Ursula for free, that is pretty devastating. Like, you get 2 big bodies on turn 1 and a backup.
You get a big body and a body and a backup on turn 1.
And a backup, yeah. Which is a pretty good value. Like,
she's not a big body, though. We can't count her as a big body.
You get 8 and big body and a baby body. But if you're using her as a value play, she's like a value bridge card. Like, you want to play her in the mid game just to, like, almost like a Porum, like a 4 CP Porum. Like, these cards that just give you a little bit of value and help enable your more broken cards. Though at least she's got this nice put a Job Monk, a Card Name Monk into the break zone to deal damage. Like, she's got some utility in the late game that those other cards sometimes don't. But like you said, those other cards, like I talked about Edge and how I thought it was a little overrated. Like, Edge, when he's unanswered, it's a problem. Like, you can't just leave him there. The problem with him is he can be answered pretty easily. Ursula, if you just let her sit and play, who cares?
I mean, are you ready for the most disgusting comparison? This card is a legend, right?
Yeah.
Cyan is a rare. Like, basically an uncommon. And he is so good that you're like, where's everything that says Samurai? Like, you're scraping Samurai. You're calling them off the bench. You're calling Samurais out of retirement. You're like, guys, you've never seen the light of day. You're from the Opus XI starter deck. It's your time. Get in here. You're a samurai. You're legally a samurai. That's all I need. Ursula is like, I'm repeating a joke. But not for our listeners here. So, Ursula is like, she's picking a team for dodgeball, and it's just like all of the worst dodgeball players. Like, all the good jocks have been picked already by Team Samurai. Cyan has got the most stacked. He's got every, like, professional athlete, everybody is on his team, and you've got like all the nerds and the people who normally just walk during gym, but the substitute teacher's like, that's not gonna fly while I'm here. Like, you're gonna have to play dodgeball. And Ursula's like, all right, guys, come on, we can do it. And she's putting together like the B team.
It's okay, I've got the anime club.
Yeah, and it's just like, you don't really want to field any of these guys, but I guess technically they can hold a dodgeball, right? And like, just maybe, all of us being on the field together might win. How, we're not really sure. But the plan is honestly just to get all of us on the field at the same time. That's as far as we can go.
And then after you do that, you're going to break your own backups to maybe kill something.
Yeah, like, you're breaking the backups that are at their best when they, like, are breaking themselves to use their ability. We were talking about how, like, if there was a single monk backup that there was a reason to replay, not even something that did something proactive when it died, right? Like, anything that had, like a when it comes in the field buff or a 3 CP monk tutor would be so cool and like would be worth like, okay, man, I can use this ability. But when you get to the mid or the even like, God forbid, the late game with this card, you're like, all right, well, I guess I can play this card and I don't really get to play anything onto the field because I'm probably at 5 backup. So I can like break a backup just so that I get value off of the enter on this card. And then I can like use this as a bad nail.
Yeah, the world's worst nail.
To, like, do my damage to something? Well, maybe I probably want to make my damage high enough to kill something first. And and then you start breaking backups that aren't worth playing. I don't know, yeah.
My backups are going to the break zone instead of RFG so I can recycle them.
But they don't do anything when they go to the break zone. And the thing is, and I've been saying this over and over again, is all of this Ursula needed to do is something that all of the other job monk cards don't already do. All of the monk cards give things brave and a bunch of power, and we've got the most recent monk cards fight their power against something with a bunch of setup included, right? She does exactly both of those things.
But for free, at the low cost of breaking a monk.
Yeah, I mean, free, question mark? What is the cost of deck construction with a bunch of monk backups?
High.
Yeah, priceless. It's like a MasterCard commercial, right?
Yeah. Like,
you can't convince me to put those cards in my deck.
It is the opposite of Chocobos.
I'll tell you, I've seen somebody try it, and
went poorly.
Yeah, it just isn't convincing. She's the kind of card that gets insane if they ever print one of those kinds of cards. You know, like how Edge is a 2-cost ninja? Like, oh, wow, if they print an Edge-esque 2CP card, I thought for sure there was going to be like a 2CP backup Yang, like an older Yang, like an after years Yang or something that like worked with this, because this card has the potential to be super nutty as a combo piece. The problem is every single card that this combos with does the same thing this card does. So there's no combo. There's just no combo. Yeah, they're bad. It's a combo piece with no second half.
So underrated cards. I'm going to go with Tilica. I don't know if she's underrated. I think she's very good.
I think people just aren't experimenting enough with it because it's not as explosive and exciting. It's not like the obvious kind of exciting. It's the kind of exciting that I think cards are when I call backups like Interceptor my favorite card in Fire.
Yeah, so Tilica is a 3 CP Earth backup, category FFCC, job Crystal user. She has the ability Dull. The cost required to play your characters onto the field this turn is reduced by 1. It cannot become 0. You can only use this ability once per turn. So Tilica basically pays 1 CP to every character you're going to play for the entire turn. Mm-hmm. And this gets really nutty as a combo enabler, especially if you fill your deck with 2 or 3 cost cards, especially in decks that skew towards the 3 cost. Generally, the problem with those decks is you can't play 2 a turn. Once you're in top deck mode, even with 5 backups, you can't play 2 in the same turn because you're hard capped. Like your top decks, you're only ever going to be able to play 1, and then you can wait a turn and then play 2, but then you're down to no hand again. With Tilica, you can just top deck, drop both cards immediately if they're 3 cost. And this gets extra nutty with things like X-Array, where X-Array becomes 2 cost. You crack the X-Array, draw 2 cards. You can play a Larketius for 2, get back the X-Array. play X-Array, draw 2 again, play Citra, get back the X-Array. Like, you can do turns with card draw spells or backups that just they chain super crazy.
Yeah, I think
she's a storm card.
Yeah, exactly. She's just that passive kind of cost reduction is just way more powerful than it looks up front. She's the right category too, where she's tutorable off of Narshtalin and helps you curve out in that, because the only other 3 cost that's tutorable in that color combination is either Alaria or now the Chelenka, but those are a very different kind of decks usually than what Tilica is going to be in. I also really like how Tilica makes certain cards like Estinian and Sakura and other cards that like do weirdly costed things where it's hard to play them and use their abilities the same turn. Like you said, much like playing 2-3 costs at the same time, Tilica just really enables those cards to be a lot stronger.
And in a deck with a lot of 2 CP forwards, making them half cost is potentially very, very powerful.
Yeah.
Like making your whole deck 1 CP. And what she does with 2 CP backups also, just really powerful. Turning everything into an evoker.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very strong card.
Very explosive. Do you have an underrated card?
Underrated card for Earth, I'm going to say Luca. Luca just, I feel like, isn't getting the attention I feel like this card should be getting. Luca can do some insane stuff. Like, Luca trades herself up for another backup that can get an ETB, or 3-drop backups have the best ETBs. Like, every 3-drop tutor is awesome.
Shorty, let me upgrade you.
Yeah, Luca, she's literally got the thumbs up because she's like, we get in the upgrade. Like, Luca is filling this awesome slot in this 4 tribal deck, because before Luca was Fire, and Fire sucks for 4, because for some reason they refused to make a good Palom. In fact, one of the best Paloms they made was Ice, for whatever reason.
Yep.
Like, okay, Palom, the only main character who just doesn't get a card in this set, again. Sure, whatever. I guess Cecil actually didn't, but, he gets so many.
He gets enough.
Yeah. So, whatever. Luca, insane. Luca, category 4, 2-cost backup. For Earth, tap Luca, put her in the break zone, choose 1 backup of cost 3 or less in your break zone, and play it onto the field. It doesn't say the color.
No.
It doesn't. It just happens. It comes right in. It gets its enter ability.
You can definitely get any... you can get Chelenka, you can splash, off-color 3-cost backups if they're relevant to you. And she just upgrades, like you said. You can play her early to fix your curve, and then late to get you value.
You don't even lose the backup, which is like usually what happens in these kinds of abilities. It's like, oh, this is powerful, it does this thing, but you're sacrificing the backup. Like, if she replaces herself and gives you a card or an effect, like delayed, it's just a really, really strong, really cool card with a almost like open-ended possibility, like high ceiling.
So on to Lightning.
Yes.
Stone Cold best card in Lightning.
Oof. Stone Cold, it's got to be, for me, I think, Glauca.
That's where I was going.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Gino, we're linking up.
I've got another one.
It's okay. So Glauca is a 2-cost Final Fantasy 15 card. He's job captain. He's 5k forward. He's the cost required to play your Lightning forwards onto the field is reduced by 1. It can't become 0. And when Glauca or a forward enters your field, choose 1 forward. It gains plus 1,000 power until the end of the turn. Honestly, just his first ability is one of the most insane things I've ever read in my life.
Yeah, so remember everything we said about Tilica? What if you could play a forward that said that for every forward in your deck?
And what if it was just that? What if that thing Tilica did just happened faster? What if it happened like right away?
And could kill your opponent.
Yeah, what if like Alua was a 2-cost? What if Estinian cost 4 and then could just use his ability the same turn? And Sakura could cost like 2 cards from hand and then just tap the 5 backups to break something. Just like the fact that the 6-drop Ramza becomes Glauca is not only a double discount for Ramza, but he double pumps him too. Right? He's a 6-cost who gets 1,000 power for each guy in play. But when you play him, he costs 1 less for Glauca and 1 less for there being another forward.
And important to mention, his ability is when Glauca or a forward enters your field, not Lightning forward.
Right, yeah.
So if you are playing a 2-element deck, which I think like with Glauca, you can just play Maybe you're playing Warriors of Darkness or something, or you're playing some other synergy where the reduction, you're playing 15 and Warriors of Darkness.
Sure.
So you've got double synergies in Earth Lightning. Well, Glauca just triggers off of everything you play.
Yeah.
And he doesn't give the power to like the thing that came into play. It's whatever you want. You can stack them up. If you play 2 forwards, you can stack both pluses onto 1 forward and get in there.
Yeah, I think that almost every time you play Glauca, you're going to follow it up with a lightning card that has a reduced cost. So immediately he's getting like value enough that if you got that reduced cost by 1 and they use removal on Glauca, he's more than done enough for a 2-cost investment. So, and the way that his ceiling, his snowball effect, just that cost reduction, that efficiency is unmatched, really. Like, it's really, really, really nuts.
And this is like the key thing that differentiates something like Glauca to me with Edge. Like the card that I wanted to downplay a little bit is Glauca asks you to play Mono Lightning, generally. Like, you'll probably be playing that. But that's the realm of, once you're in Mono Lightning, your deck's already very consistent. You've got no color considerations. Edge asks you to play 2 to 3 colors. So it's asking you to make your CP a little bit difficult for this promise of a payoff. Glauca is already going into a hyper-consistent deck that has a bunch of options. You can build your Mono Lightning deck a bunch of different ways, and Glauca will always be good. Edge requires you to play a bunch of cards that may or may not be good, that only are good when Edge is in play, and in some cases can only be played when Edge is in play. So I think that that's just the difference between the ceilings for these 2 cards. Like, I think Edge's ceiling is higher, but his floor is much lower. Glauca, very high floor, also a high ceiling. Yeah.
And I am surprised I haven't seen more Mono Lightning. I mean, it's been 1 weekend.
It's okay. My lists are private.
Okay, there you go. And how about you, Gina? What's your other one you have pent up?
So my backup, it's between 2 cards that are very similar, Kuja and Nyx. But I think I give the nod to Nyx because he's not restricted on what he breaks. So 4 CP, Category 15, Kingsglaive, Job Kingsglaive, 8K power, forward. When Nyx enters the field, put 1 Job Kingsglaive you control into the break zone. When you do so, choose 1 forward, break it. When a Job Kingsglaive other than Nyx you control is put from the field into the break zone, select one of the 2 following actions. Nyx gains haste until end of turn, choose 1 forward, or choose 1 forward, dull it. So I think Nyx, just as a 4 CP break-a-dude, is a really underrated mode. Like, 4 CP break-a-dude is completely reasonable.
Yeah, he's like a 4 CP Odin.
He's 4 CP Odin. He's 4 CP Odin. Like, people tried to play 4 CP Raiden, and it required you to pay only with backups. Like, this dude just does that. That's his bad mode.
With a way higher ceiling.
If you don't do that, if you put, say, Crow or Libertus.
Yeah, Libertus.
These 15 names. Or Luce. If you put those cards in your deck, which is a cost, but if you put them in your deck, Nyx not only breaks an opponent's thing, he also can gain haste or dull a forward, and you get to keep Nyx. And most of those cards beg for death.
Honestly, Crow is a fantastic card regardless. Yeah.
Exactly. So Crow is like she's Fusoya that can activate himself.
Yeah, 3-cost backup, and when she's put from the field to the break zone, you just choose a forward in your break zone and add it to your hand.
And she can break herself to dull a forward.
Yeah, easy.
So I think that Nyx, with this package, like all the Kingsglaives, is a completely reasonable thing to put in Mono Lightning or Earth Lightning 15. And I think that just having this 4 CP card that is just a removal spell when you want it to be, or a body if the backup's more relevant, if you can break a backup easily, that's just super efficient removal.
Yeah.
Overrated cards.
An overrated lightning card, I might have to say the Maya.
Yeah.
And it's because, like, I wouldn't have thought it would be highly rated, but I've seen people talking really highly about it or being, like, hype about it, and I don't understand, Gina. Maybe you can sell me on this card. Maybe you can change my mind to be on this card. This Maya is a 3-cost witch, Job Witch, category Mobius. Yeah. If you control a Job Warrior of Light Forward or Light Forward, Maya gains plus 2,000 power. When a light or dark character either player controls is put from the field into the break zone, choose one character other than light or dark in your break zone, add it to your hand. So the thing about Maya is she's a lightning forward, and I have a very hard time thinking of any time I've ever played a Job Warrior of Light or or light forward alongside cards like Maya. Maybe an Onion Knight.
So making her a 9K is tough, I think. I don't know that unless you're playing like Wind, Lightning,
Right.
and you've got a Warrior Light in there somehow,
So then
or a Wool.
it's probably
Earth
not going to
Lightning.
happen, right? So then you go to her second ability, and it's like, well, man, I mean, the most played dark character in the game is really hard to send to the break zone.
Yeah, you need it to be your dude who's dying. Like if you play her with the light Warrior of Light, the light Wool,
Yeah,
or
but
the
then
Earth Wool.
yeah, but see now exactly. This card pairs the best with the light wall, right? He's also from Mobius. Obviously, that's why they have good synergy.
But there's no Warriors of
But
Light.
why the hell would you want to play Lightning? Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. I don't get it. Like canonically, I don't play Mobius. I don't understand. Maya must be like evil,
she's
but
Wall's
she
sidekick.
also is Wall's like, yeah, like is like into Wall or something. But she's like also bad. I don't understand. I don't know.
She's a witch and she's pals with Wool.
Yeah, because she's in the bad girl colors,
Yeah.
but like is very much always synergizing with like the good guys or just Mobius in general. Yeah, I don't know. This card, I have a very hard time finding what card this card's meant to work with, and this card's a hero, so you feel like there's like got to be some, like it should be obvious, right? There should be something where I'm just like, oh, Doe, this is the card, but like I don't get it. What am I, unless I'm like breaking my own Veritas and then getting a character back? But it's like it just feels so like this card doesn't help me do that. So this card has to be out and Veritas has to be out, and then I have to be in a position where I'm breaking my own guy, and then it's my reward for all of that is getting like one card back. Like
That's the problem.
Yeah, I don't understand.
I think that if you're playing a deck that has light forwards or Warrior of Light and make her a 9K, like 3-cost 9K is still legit. That's still a great body.
Mm-hmm.
If you can set that up easily. And then you have to have that second part be gravy, I think. Like if you're just killing your opponent's stuff. But I think that because you require a two-part combo for this thing to be anything other than a 3-cost 7K, I just don't want to do it.
Yeah,
like,
I mean,
I could
like,
just
man,
play Sephiroth as
exactly.
a 3-cost 9K.
I was just about to say for like a 1-part combo. I mean, a 2-part, Sephiroth plus haste. I can like threaten the game with a 9K that stays a 9K.
And this guy, Maya, just wants you to keep recycling value, and I don't. On a 3-cost 9K in a perfect world, why am I just sitting there recycling value?
Yeah, I don't know. And
Make him
the
dead.
other Maya is so much better.
Makes them dead.
Like it's so
makes
much
them
better.
Dead. Okay, so for me, overrated cards. I mean, I don't see that many that are like not properly rated. I think Aranea, honestly,
Yeah,
might
actually,
be a little
100%.
overrated.
I think that what happened was the more cards we saw,
The more we realized this set was gas.
and she's like maybe not that crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, so she's 4-cost category 15, Dragoon, great job. 7K, first strike. For each forward other than Aranea you control, she gets plus 1,000 power. Damage 3, when she enters the field, choose one lightning forward of cost 2 or less in your break zone, play it onto the field. And damage 6, she gains the forwards you control, gain haste. So she is obviously very well statted. The first strike, I think, is the most relevant thing on this card with the pump.
Yes.
Because she just becomes a brick wall very quickly. And in Dragoon specifically, that damage 3 clause will get you back the 2 CP Dragoon that gets plus 2,000 power for every Dragoon in play.
Mm-hmm.
So she gets back a really good Dragoon for you. But my problem with her is that if you just play her on an empty board and you're not at damage 3, or you're at damage 3 but you don't have a good target, she doesn't do a whole lot for you. And damage 6 is so dangerous to be at. Like, I don't want too many things that trigger on damage 6 that don't win the game.
Mm-hmm.
And haste on everything might win the game.
But you still have to be so you're at damage 6 and you have her out, and you still have to be playing more things.
probably.
Yeah,
Or,
and it's
well,
like it's
you
just
play
tough.
her.
It's just like normally if you're at 6 and you're like clawing back and you're trying to just get in like one last point of damage, it's like you don't have much of a board.
She gives herself haste though, so you can
Yes,
at least like drop her, and then she could be the last point.
That's true.
But I just think that she does everything that 6 CP Ramza does, but she doesn't snowball as hard.
Mm-hmm.
Like 6 CP Ramza, when you play him, it's like, hey, it's 2 CP now, and it breaks one of your dudes, and he's fucking, you can't block him. He's got haste. She does all those same things, except requires you to be on death's door to do it for you.
Mm-hmm.
And she gets paid off for all the same things. So I don't.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I just and it's like even Dragoon, like she doesn't do anything that synergizes with Dragoons besides like I guess there being a bunch of them and her being a good card to like passively haste with Barb or be able to tutor. And I mean, like you said, the damage 3 can get you back arguably the best standard unit Dragoon, but like, I mean, it's just nice that she's a card that is decent. That is a new
with
name.
that job.
Yeah. The new
so
name
my
is the big thing.
My big thing with her is probably like I might play her as a one of in an Agrius list, just as another kind of King of Prometheus target. That's also kind of a Ramza that can, give your stuff haste. But her damage 3 is never going to do anything in that deck. Not once, not ever.
Yeah, I've seen her on the field twice, and both times it was just like, wow, you're pretty combat trickable because of your first ability, and like...
Yep.
I'm not going to let you get to 6. I'm going to take you from 5 to 7.
Yep. And they play Cuckoo Lane, and then she's... she just dies. So, underrated cards in Lightning.
Puck.
That was my answer as well.
We think similarly. We like the same types of things. Is Puck not insane?
I think he's insane.
Puck is wild. What? Puck is a 4-cost backup. Job Prince. Category 9. Everything is relevant here. When Puck enters the field, you choose a forward to cost 1 in your break zone and you play it onto the field. Okay. And then at damage 3, when Puck enters the field, you also choose 1 forward to cost 2 in your break zone and play it onto the field. So this guy is a 4-cost backup who just delivers 2 bodies from the break zone onto the field. And, a 1-cost backup minus the cost from the hand and the 2 minus the cost from the hand, that's 7. So this guy he's technically 6, right? 4 in the card from your hand. But he gives you a backup and it's still like -1 as far as value is concerned. But developing a backup and just floating a board in this color especially, and it's not restricted to the color. So you play Puck and you just put a 2-cost, and you stack this in your own way, right? You play 2-cost Zidane and 1-cost VV on the field. What?
Yeah.
Like, this card is crazy. Damage 3 is so early. I wake up at damage 3.
Fire and Lightning, like, get Dodaluma. You want to play it in the deck with Dodaluma. Get Zack. The only problem I have with Puck is that there aren't good 1 CP targets for Puck in Lightning, because I think this card is specifically great in Lightning Fire.
Rams is not bad.
It's not terrible, but the thing is, if you're in Lightning Fire and you're playing a curve that low, getting 3 activations for Rams is hard.
I'm just, so honestly, I really, really like Lightning Water 9 this set with the Fire Splash. Because you have the water Moogle that taps, and then Puck will just slam that shit into play, Like, we already kind of talked about how you can play the Zidane split because of the S ability. And then, Kuja. And Kuja works really well with, like, some power loss, like minor power loss. Like, Kuja works great with Freya. So, it's, I think that Puck is a really, really good card. Just what he does, it's just great value. And over time, the more of these things that they print, like more 1 and 2 cost cards they print, he'll get better. Also, he's tutorable in, a very niche, but still an archetype. He's tutorable by both Steiner and by Puge. And it matters that they're in the same color.
Super relevant.
Yeah.
So that was my go-to. Though I guess I can say like one thing on Kuja, because he also seems to be underrated. Like 4 CP, Category 9, Genome, 8K power. When Kuja enters the field, choose one forward of cost 3 or less opponent controls. Break it. Kuja deals you 1 point of damage. Choose up to 2 and then he has an S ability, Thundaga. S, lightning, lightning, lightning. Choose up to 2 forwards opponent controls. Deal them 2,000 damage. Then deal 5,000 damage to all the damage forwards opponent controls. I think just 4 CP, come in, break a dude. Same thing that I said about Nyx. Also true about Kuja. 3 is a very common cost. And dealing yourself 1 point of damage isn't that big of a deal as long as you're intelligent about it. So... and then the S ability is just gravy. So getting a 4 CP on curve body that also takes a dude down, people pay 7 CP to do. Apparently with Umaro, people are willing to do that for 7. He's less than that. So I think that he slots right into a Water Lightning 9 deck.
Yeah, I also love that his S ability doesn't require a tap or anything. You can just do that immediately when he comes into play.
And with the cards they care about, like already damaged forwards like Sakura, and the other cards that do stuff like that, Orlandu, he combos with all the same stuff. So, Water, let's try and speed round. Because
yes, I'm sorry, I know, we've been going quick. We can just talk about cards all day.
We can.
I know.
So, Water, Stone Cold Best.
Stone Cold Best for Water. Personally, I think Unileska.
Dang it.
Right.
So
I'll go.
I've got a number 2, but I've got something to say about Unileska. Okay, so you go first.
Okay. So Unileska, I like Unileska because she ticks all the right boxes. She's got another dual relevant job or category, Mobius and 10.
Why is everything Mobius?
I don't know, but I don't mind. She's a job summoner. The cost required to cast your summons is reduced by 1 for each job summoner forward you control. And when Unileska enters the field, you choose 1 summon in your break zone and you place it at the bottom of your deck. And she's a 4-cost AK, so she's great. She's on curve. She's a nice big body in water, very tutorable, in the right colors for summoner synergies, and in the best color for summoner synergy. So even without all the summoner deck stuff, with just this and the backup Una, your Fanfrits are on bargain bin discounts at 1 CP.
Yes. And so something that I don't hear anyone talking about is she is the only card that I know of that can put a card into your deck.
Yeah, she is definitely the only card that does that, I believe.
She's the only one that does that. And if you're playing a hard control deck, she is a win.
Besides Lightning, 5 CP Lightning that puts Odin back on top of your deck from the discard pile.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So there are 2 cards that do it. But
she's much better.
is a much better card and in a control color and has an ability that supports control builds. So with Unileska, if you're building with 3 of her, and maybe some way to recur her, you can build a mill win condition just by using Unileska to restock your deck. I don't think that it will necessarily come to that all the time, but having that element in the game at all, like it used to be once Riku was removed, like all of the mill win conditions are bad.
Yeah, it's a brand new mechanic.
This allows you to play a deck with nothing but Stone Cold removal and just like 3 of her, and you can win the game on deck out. So I think that that's an interesting mechanic. And then on top of everything else you just said, like making your Diaboloses 4 is gross.
Yeah.
Making
or less
or less. Making your Valfors 1, like all of those things super relevant. The card my other one is the Other Summoner, Garnet. She's 4 CP, 8K. Category 9 Summoner. When you cast a summon, place 1 summon counter on Garnet. You can remove 1 summon counter from Garnet, choose 1 forward you control. It gains plus 2,000 power until end of turn, and then you can dull her, randomly reveal 1 card from your hand. If it's a summon, you may cast it without paying its cost. There is no color restriction. There's no cost restriction on that. So if you just sculpt your hand to where you've got, I don't know, a Raiden or a Bahamut or Diabolos, anything. Just anything. You can have Garnet cast it for free. She's also gaining counters as you're doing that. So if you untap with Garnet, it's going to be very hard to kill her with just damage. And if you can use things like Fairy or Ashura with Garnet, you can reactivate her and dull her again and draw cards too. So you can just kind of machine gun through your deck if you're building it very heavy on summons.
Yeah. She's a super cool card, that's for sure. I'm also biased because I love Garnet and I love Summoners.
Same. But I think that she's got a lot of power and she's got a lot of combo potential. I think that she might be a card that doesn't end up seeing as much play as I would like just because she's very specific, and summon-based decks tend to be underpowered because summons in this game are generally... building with a lot of summons is problematic.
Yeah.
They can't win the game by themselves.
Right.
But I think that Garnet's still going to be good enough that it's worth exploring. So then, overrated card.
Oof. So this card is still really, really, really good. Okay. But overrated is Mira.
Agreed.
So Mira is a 2-cost FFCC forward. When a category FFCC character other than Mira you control is put from the field to the break zone, you may search for one FFCC character of the same card type and add it to your hand. This effect will only trigger once per turn. Then tap, choose one FFCC character other than a forward you control, activate it until the end of the turn. It becomes a forward with 8,000 power. I mean, that's crazy, right? It can turn a backup into a forward with 8,000 power. It can turn a monster into a forward with 8,000 power. At the cost, though, of being the most obvious telegraphed thing in the world that is very paced. It is easy to respond to. It is restricted to the category FSCC characters. It is in the color that is not the best. It doesn't have the strongest FFCC lineup, so it's very narrow. You're forced to play all the blue FFCC characters because there's only 3.
Yeah, Tonberries, and Mira.
Chime isn't even good enough. Yeah.
Yeah, Chime's terrible.
So Mira has absolutely insane game-breaking effect. They were just very careful about what cards they let this do it to. And all the strengths of the FFCC backup line and the FFCC package just don't click with what Mira does. And mostly because she's in the wrong color.
Yeah, and I think that my criticism of Mira are all the criticisms I had of Edge, but the upside is lower.
Yeah, I mean, she's still a really cool card. It's just
yeah, totally. I think she's good.
You have
she's
to
really
build
good.
around it, and it's really bad if she's not out. Yeah,
it's really bad if they kill her. And she doesn't replace herself; she replaces everything else. So if they just knock that domino over, like your Tonbetty doesn't look very good. Some of your other cards that are synergizing with Mira don't look very good. Backup overrated card, Theodore.
Yeah, fair. Okay.
4 CP forward, Prince, Job Prince, Category 4, 8K. Dull 1 active card named Cecil forward and 1 active card named Rosa forward. Play Theodore onto the field. You can only use this ability during your turn and if Theodore is in the break zone. So my problem with him is that he's a 4-cost 8K body unless you have a Cecil and Rosa in play. That's it. He's a vanilla 4-cost 8K. If you can assemble Ma and Pa, you can bring him back from the break zone where he will be a 4-cost 8K forward.
Depends. Yeah, if you're doing the whole tribe, he probably has Rydia buff, where okay, he's probably 9K brave. But again, at that point, any 4 body, any warm body with category 4 that you stick on the field is going to be good. So yeah, I agree that he's in practice, it's maybe not as easy to do all of that. And it could be a really, really strong turn 1 play, like the old Vanille Yang Ursula type stuff. But the thing is, I played the Rosa on the field to go do the combo turn 1, and the very first thing Chris did was respond to Rosa's search trigger by killing Rosa. So I lost that game.
If he had an ability, anything
at all, even if it was something where he tapped himself to do something, but yeah. But the job's not quite enough. The Clady synergy isn't enough to save you. I'm sorry, even though I get so excited about every job Prince forward, especially a water.
Yeah, it's a shame, but he's just a vanilla 8K, and he's got an alternate cost that's pretty good. You get additional value out of the break zone, but what's he going to do? Chump block?
Yeah,
his body's not big enough. I don't know. You have to have the 4 synergies be good enough to put him over the top, and I don't think they are.
That's fair.
For him specifically. Just play other cards that are better. Underrated cards in Water.
Alchemist.
My 2 were Alchemist and Realm.
Yeah, Realm is... I'm not sure if she's underrated, but if anyone's underrating this card's very, very strong. Its second ability... Let's just do Realm first. Realm's second ability doesn't matter. Realm is a 5-cost card. There's a 4,000 power, category 6. Again, matters a lot. When she enters the field, you search for up to 1 monster cost 1 and 1 monster cost 2 and play them on the field. What? No cost or color restriction. We talked about how strong this is already. Realm can just come into play and play Cleone and Tonberry. Cleone Hilgigas. Unsaganashi Goblin. Bomb, 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 bomb.
Melt Gemini.
Yeah, absolutely wild. Can play Melt Gemini and
Bomb.
a bomb. Can play the like in mono water monsters is great, and multicolor monsters is great. Has like Unsaganashi Goblin is a hell of a neutral play, and then she's
Sure
still
is.
a body. It's absolutely wild. This card is really really good.
You can just splash whatever off-color nonsense you want, and you only need to play one of the monster in most cases. You probably want at least 2 hits for each cost.
Right. But search is the deck that plays on the field, though, man. I mean, it's just absolutely wild.
On the field.
Absolutely wild.
And Alchemist.
Alchemist is crazy. So Alchemist is a 2-cost multi-play backup because he is a standard unit. He's FFTA. And for just the cost of tapping himself and putting himself in the break zone, you can discard a card from your hand and search your deck for one card of the same type as the discarded card and add it to your hand. So that means you discard any forward and find another forward. Any summon, find another summon. Alchemist is an easy investment early. It's a 2-cost backup that just breaks to win the game or to get you out of whatever situation you're in. Like, it's a massive increase to card quality in your hand at the cost of a backup.
And one that you're going to play early just to set this
it's
up.
absolutely wild. Like, go find an S ability. Go find the other half of your combo. Like, go find the CAG or the Nickel. Go find, like the Knight for your Lena, the Viking for your Layla.
Go find Braska's final
anything. And he's, again, not restricted to color. He just does the thing. He sets up so many combos. What a good card.
All right, and I don't think we need to do light and dark.
They're all good.
I will say
4 cards are
they're all good. All of them are good in different ways. Every single one of them is very playable. If you're putting Cloud in your deck and you're planning on using the 3 cost thing to break stuff, please plan to win the game. Please, if you're playing Sephiroth in your deck, please plan to put your opponent to 4 or put yourself to 4 very quickly.
Have like a
Otherwise,
plan
it's a real
for getting
bummer.
to the damage because Jesus,
Yes.
he has a dead card in hand, man.
If you're just playing a mid-range deck and you're just like, he's just really good, and what if you and your opponent just stare at each other on 3 damage and he's just clogging up your hand? You'll wish he was Kadaj.
You sure will. Kadaj, best Opus 11 card.
Probably. And then Chaos and Princess Sarah, both excellent. So, like, all the light and dark cards, all really good. All go in potentially different decks, which is also very cool. But, yeah, Opus 11, I think this will go down as one of the more important releases in recent memory. It completed a bunch of decks, and it made a bunch of things possible. It, I think, is going to change the meta a lot. There's a lot of very powerful cards, but I think that a lot of the power, thankfully, is contained in cards that seem like they'll have fun play patterns.
Yeah, or they like create something like that's brand new, and they're not necessarily like it's super powerful cards where you're like, oh cool, just slam that in WAF. Like there was almost no card where you're just like, oh my god, you just put this in WAF and WAF gets better. That's really important.
Yeah, a lot of these cards demand new decks or make other decks that were not overpowered into real threats. And I think that's the sweet spot. That's what you want in design. So another well-designed set after Opus 10, which was, I think, another well-designed set. So
yeah, I think that I really like the direction we're moving into where we're pushing a lot of the tribal and the category synergies harder. It's one of the strengths of the game, so I like that we're leaning into that design.
Totally. So I think that's it for our review or our set discussion of Opus 11.
It's a lot of cards.
Hopefully people are still listening.
It's a lot of cards. There's lots to talk about.
It is. They're so good. There are so many. Man, I'm so excited to play more of this set. It's going to be so good.
Yes, I'm so excited because we're along for this ride together, Gino. Tomorrow night at this time we'll have just played 3 to 4 rounds of another wonderful tournament.
Yes. And just a reminder, if you want to get in on the World of Ruin FFTCG Community Cup, you can do so. Look, cardsofevilist.com. They've got the sign-ups. If you would like to join in on the weekly locals, there'll be a link in the show notes to the Discord. I'm going to try and do that. And just the plugs for the normal show. If you want to reach out to the show, you can do so at DeepListensPod on Twitter, deeplistens.libsyn.com. We've got our comment sections, and deeplistenspodcast@gmail.com is the podcast email. And you can also support the show, patreon.com/deeplistens. That'll get you access to the Discord and all of our community events. We've got a game night coming up soon. We're going to be playing Splatoon.
Yes,
So
Splatoon is so good.
Splatoon 2. We're getting on a salmon
That's
run.
awesome.
Excellent. So thanks. Thank you again, John.
Of course, it's my pleasure. I could talk shop all day. You know this. This is what we actually do all day. So I'm happy to get to come and do it for the people. And like he said, if you're interested at all in getting in on the Octagon games, come play with Gino and get cast by me. It's a great time. We'll have a good time together. We're happy to teach you. We're happy to help you get better.
Totally. And thank you for listening. Till next time. Peace.